Hey guys, tonight we're not setting sail into pirate waters. No greasy sailors, no splintery ships, no sunburnt men arguing over treasure that probably never existed. Nope, tonight we're wandering somewhere much quieter, much darker, and far more curious. Tonight, we're stepping into the shadowy corners of history, where generals swore dangerous oaths, Romans performed rituals they definitely didn't want written down, and scholars spent centuries trying to turn lead into gold. But before we drift too far into the unknown, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy these strange little nighttime journeys. No pressure. Sleepy Oogway would never pressure you. And leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. Somehow, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And honestly, topics like forbidden rituals and ancient secrets feel exactly right at 2 a.m. Now, dim those lights. Turn on a fan for that soft white noise hum. Get comfortable. Sink into your pillow. Wrap yourself in a blanket, and maybe tuck your feet in. Not because imaginary rats are plotting anything tonight, but because history has a way of creeping up when your toes are cold. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what history looks like after dark? Not the clean textbook version, but the quiet, whispered version. The oaths sworn in secret. The rituals practiced behind closed doors. The experiments carried out by candlelight, where failure meant madness, or worse. Tonight, we'll meet Hannibal, not just the legendary general who crossed the Alps with elephants, but the man bound by a dark oath so powerful it shaped his entire life. An oath whispered in childhood and carried like a shadow into war. We'll drift into ancient Rome, where religion, superstition, and power mixed in unsettling ways, where certain rituals were hidden from the public eye, practiced only by those who believed the gods demanded secrecy and sacrifice. And finally, we'll wander into the strange, smoky workshops of alchemy, where early thinkers weren't just trying to make gold, but searching for truth, immortality, and the secret patterns of the universe. Men who believed matter itself had a soul, and that with enough patience, wisdom, and sleepless nights, it might reveal its secrets. But don't worry, we're not racing through battles or shocking details. We're moving slowly, quietly, like turning the pages of an old book while everyone else in the world is asleep. This is history meant for half-closed eyes, for wandering thoughts, for the calm space between curiosity and dreams. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Let the noise of the modern world fade away. Tonight, with Sleepy Oogway as your guide, we explore dark oaths, forbidden rituals, and the secret science that once promised to unlock the universe. One quiet story at a time. Now, let us begin. Chapter 1. The Thermopylae at Midday. The street is alive with noise, heat, and movement, yet somehow feels timeless. Beneath sun-drenched marble columns, an ancient Roman Thermopylae hums with chaotic energy. A street food counter pressed into the very bones of the city. The stone counter curves outward toward the road, worn smooth by countless elbows, coins, and impatient hands. Its surface is pitted and stained, marked by generations of spilled broth, grease, and mystery. Embedded directly into the counter are large earthenware pots known as dolia. Their rounded rims rise like small clay mouths from the stone, each one holding a bubbling stew whose contents are difficult to identify. Steam curls upward in lazy spirals, carrying with it a dense mix of aromas: salt, vinegar, herbs, smoke, and something unmistakably animal. The scent clings to the air, heavy and persistent, refusing to be ignored. One pot simmers dark and thick, its surface broken occasionally by a slow bubble that releases a puff of steam. Another is lighter in color, flecked with herbs and oil that shimmer in the sunlight. No labels explain what lies inside. There is no menu. The food is not described. It is simply served. Romans standing at the counter trust familiarity over certainty, dipping bread into whatever is ladled out, accepting the contents without question. Behind the counter, the vendor works quickly, almost mechanically. His tunic is stained from years of splashes and spills, his hands moving from ladle to pot with practiced ease. He stirs without looking, as though the stews know when they are ready. A wooden spoon disappears into one doleum and emerges dripping with something thick and glistening. The liquid slides back into the pot with a soft, wet sound that blends into the noise of the street. Nearby, questionable sausages hang from iron hooks or rest in shallow trays, their origins unclear and their spices strong enough to mask whatever truths lie beneath. Some are dark and shriveled, others pale and plump, all of them glistening faintly in the heat. They are cut, warmed, and handed over with little ceremony. No one asks what animal they came from. In a city this large, survival favors trust, or at least acceptance. Above the thermopolium, marble columns reflect the midday sun, their bright surfaces contrasting sharply with the shadows beneath the counter. Light spills down in golden sheets, illuminating drifting steam and casting flickering reflections on the stone floor. Dust motes float lazily through the air, mixing with smoke from nearby braziers and the distant scent of incense from a temple down the street. The sounds are layered and constant. Coins clink against stone. Sandals scrape over worn pavement. Voices rise and fall in fragments of Latin conversation. Gossip, bargaining, laughter, irritation. Somewhere close by, a cart rattles past. Somewhere farther away, a hammer strikes metal. The city breathes through this narrow space, and the thermopolium is one of its lungs. For many Romans, this counter is not a novelty, but a necessity. Most city dwellers do not have kitchens. They eat here, standing shoulder to shoulder, sharing space, heat, and uncertainty. The stews are cheap, filling, and warm, enough to quiet hunger and keep the body moving through another long day. And yet, beneath the ordinary rhythm of ladles and bowls, there is something faintly unsettling. The food is nourishing, yes, but also unknowable. Ingredients change. Recipes shift. Preservation relies more on salt and spice than science. In a world without refrigeration, mystery is part of every meal. As the sun continues its slow climb above the marble columns, the stews keep bubbling. The sausages remain hanging. The counter grows more crowded, then briefly emptier, then crowded again. The thermopolium never truly rests. It only pauses between waves of hunger. In this small, chaotic corner of ancient Rome, daily life unfolds not in grand forums or noble villas, but here, over steaming pots of questionable stew, beneath bright stone columns, where survival tastes warm, strange, and faintly alchemical. A perfect place for history to quietly simmer.
Chapter 2: Jung, Alchemy, and the Great Pumpkin Conspiracy. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a world where ancient knowledge mingles with folk wisdom and a slight dash of chaos, much like your last attempt at assembling IKEA furniture. Picture this. You're lounging in the dim light of a 20th century psychologist's study, complete with the smell of old books and faint whiffs of existential dread. Welcome to the mind of Carl Jung, a man who believed understanding yourself was much like transmuting lead into gold, an uphill struggle with a lot of sweaty brows and moments of despair. Now, have you ever sat in a therapy session wondering if your therapist was actually just working through their own issues while pretending to understand yours? Or maybe you fretted over your latest life choice, sweating more than a sinner in church just to realize, wait for it, that you might simply need to cut back on caffeine. Ever had that one friend who keeps bringing up their crystal collection and insists they're not hoarding, but rather in the pursuit of higher vibrations? Settle in, make sure your lights are dimmed, and sprinkle your space with whatever essential oil you've got lying around. Lavender, tea tree, or something that just smells mysteriously uplifting. Here we are, transported to the wild synthesis of the late Roman Republic. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the world of alchemy, where a man named Hannibal carved out his notorious scheme to conquer not just cities, but also the very fabric of human vulnerability, using herbs, cryptic texts, and perhaps what he thought was an organic skincare routine. As you blink away your confusion, you're greeted by a study that could resemble a mix between a library and one of those bizarre flea markets where every item has a story. But you really just wanted to find a throw pillow. Dust motes dance in the faint light, settling onto a table cluttered with scrolls, half-burnt candles, and a writing slate covered in symbols that could be either profound wisdom or a grocery list for the world's most eccentric chef. The candles flicker, casting shadows of ancient figures who might as well be pondering the meaning of life while making unsolicited relationships with whatever goldfish happens to be in their vicinity. These figures whisper about the transformative power of the mind and the secret potential of alchemy. Just think, one murmurs, the key to self-actualization may rest within these dusty pages, or perhaps in that half-eaten turnip we all avoid talking about. Elaborate illustrations of potions and mystical processes are sprawled all over the place. You discern sketches of a singular bubbling cauldron, though, let's be real, it looks more like someone attempted to recreate a badly drawn cartoon. The plant diagrams are rivaled only by parental doodles found stuck to a fridge. Here, if you squint hard enough, you can almost hear someone dramatically insisting, "If I just mix this potion with the wisdom of the ancients,
I can finally understand why my cat looks at me like I owe it money. The clanging sounds of pots boiling and the faint hiss of smoke fill the air as medieval scholars wander through the chaos, stirring their mixtures with more enthusiasm than skill. You can't help but imagine them engaging in absurd debates over the world's most ridiculous herbal remedies. Do you solemnly believe that elderberry and ginseng can solve your issues with lunch? Clearly not, one declares, while another peers skeptically at a jar labeled Essence of Regret. Despite the chaos, you sense a tension that buzzes like an electric fence crossed by a particularly curious goat. Here is where humanity's deepest questions tussle with the wild, whimsical absurdities of the universe. Can these alchemical experiments lead to actual enlightenment? Or will they merely yield another questionable potion that might turn someone into a frog instead? Last time I tried this, one muddles nervously, I ended up working at a frog sanctuary, and believe me, they have some serious hippo squats. Jung believed that transmutation echoed the process of self-discovery, turning our baseline lead qualities into golden insights. Imagine getting up each day and trying to transform your personal meltdowns into profound epiphanies. I can't turn my life around if I can't even find my shoes half the time, you muse. Here, surrounded by eccentric scholars, you begin to realize that perhaps the greatest alchemical discovery of all is learning to embrace the comedy of your own life, even when it feels like you're attempting to brew potions in a comic skit gone wrong. Yet as you gaze into the bubbling concoctions before you, a faint thought flickers. What if Hannibal, in his quest for conquest, merely wanted to spice up Roman dining? Wouldn't it be delightful, you catch one philosopher murmuring over the steam, to transform a mundane rabbit stew into a symphony of flavors, and maybe a treaty with the neighboring tribe? You smirk, figuring you might even join these antics. Let's just add a dash of pumpkin spice and see who we can confuse. As the scholars continue their lively discussions on life, death, and the occasional rogue flavor of goat cheese, a wink crosses your mind. Could this actually work? Could laughter, confusion, and even the occasional misstep lead to an epiphany of the soul? After all, when life hands you a free-range egg, it seems only right to make an alchemical frittata out of it. And so, amid the bubbling and the mishaps, the wisdom of the ancients dances with the absurdity of human nature, creating a brew rich with humor, enlightenment, and the understanding that perhaps the secret to life isn't in transmuting lead into gold, but in delighting in our collective attempts, whether woeful, whimsical, or absolutely hilarious. A new perspective brews, and with it comes the chuckle of acceptance, because after all, our lives could be the best alchemical experiment of all. Chapter 3. The Chickpea Circus of the Roman Forum. Let's talk about snacking. Imagine yourself in the bustling heart of ancient Rome, where the air is thick with the aroma of roasted chickpeas, or as they're known in the scholarly circles of the time, Cicer Aratinum. Ah, Cicer Aratinum, a culinary delight so salty and rock-hard, it makes the chips at your local party look like soft pillows. Forget heart-shaped boxes of chocolates. If you could steal a bowl of these little gems from the vendor at the Forum, you had struck gold, or at least something close. As you meander through the riotous chaos of the Roman Forum, an 80,000-person amphitheater of noise, color, and mildly irritating smells, you immediately understand why they didn't invent headphones in this era. Who has time for serene playlists when you're being bombarded by the shouts of vendors advertising their wares? You could almost hear the words echoing in your head, ricocheting off ancient marble columns like wayward arrows in a gladiatorial skirmish. Get your crunchy, salty chickpeas, the perfect snack to keep your mouth busy while your brain contemplates why you're still single. You stop at one pomposity of a vendor. His turban looks less like a fashion statement and more like a last-minute laundry disaster. His table is piled high with bowls brimming over with these chickpeas, glinting like polished gravel under the midday sun. It's like watching a nature documentary where the only thing on display is snack food, and the narrator only ever states the obvious. Here, we see a human making regrettable life choices at the Roman Forum. The chickpeas are like small, earthy marbles, deceptively touting their crunchiness, waiting to be sacrificed to the gods of mortality by way of your questionable snacking choices. Ever tried to chew a small rock? Well, chomp down on one of these little gems, and you might find the experience eerily similar, just without the potential dental reconstruction. As you take a handful, something amusing strikes you. This entire scene could very well be the world's first festival of crunchy snack torture. The vendors' shouting blends harmoniously with the babble of the joyous crowds roaming the forum. Conversations bounce off the stone walls like echoes in a cave, but instead of finding your way out, you're just left hoping to emerge unscathed from a chickpea avalanche. All the while you are left pondering what the Romans did for fun before they invented video games. Clue: it had something to do with strapping armored men into a giant arena to fight over salty legumes. Remember that time you craved a midnight snack and rummaged through your fridge, only to find expired condiments and ice cubes that were just way too ambitious? In 250 BCE, things were slightly worse. If you were lucky, you'd spread a bit of olive oil on those hearty chickpeas. But more often than not, those delicious circles of extraordinary crunch were consumed straight from the vendor, making for an experience akin to gargling with sandpaper. A 30-minute stand in line means your chance to taste this culinary delight is just as likely to turn into a stand-up comedy routine about your life choices. Ah yes, can I have a bowl of regret, topped with a healthy drizzle of, why did I think this was a good idea? Now, let's take a moment to absorb the lively scene around you. The colorfully adorned citizens are busy barter trading, haggling over the price of barely edible wares. You can almost hear the sound of coins clattering, a clumsy orchestra of democracy in action, but honestly, it sounds more like they're all auditioning for a percussion section. Slippers are sliding on uneven cobblestones, and you're half worried someone is going to take an unfortunate tumble, creating a ripple effect that knocks down an entire row of unsuspecting patrons. What a way to draw a crowd. And what's this? A gaudy merchant standing beside the roasted chickpea vendor is now trying to sell you an amphora of expired fish sauce as if it were an elixir of immortality. He's waving his arms like a windmill caught in a storm, yelling words that sound suspiciously like scientific persuasion. Buy now. It has medicinal properties. And vitamins. Probably. How might the local archaeologists explain this in the future? Discoveries indicate that Romans had a unique affinity for putting everything on sale, including their respect for personal hygiene. Inscriptions on pots showed mixed reviews on fish sauce flavor profiles, but stellar return rates. So there you are, grappling with a bowl of fearlessly crunchy chickpeas, an existential crisis, and a fishy merchant trying to sell you the secrets of the universe, all in a single afternoon at the Forum. If anyone ever tells you that Rome wasn't chaotic, remind them that chaos has a way of creating incredibly funny stories and diet nightmares. Before you silently curse the decision to buy a chickpea bowl instead of that alluringly toxic-looking fish sauce, consider this. Those rock-solid legumes somehow unite strangers, offering them a shared experience that transcends time. In fact, you'd be heartily addressing a hilarious version of this ancient reality as you try to impress some poor bystander with the intense act of chewing. A dramatic battle between jawbone and snack that rivals even the fiercest gladiator encounter. So, welcome to the bustling Roman Forum, where the salty, crunchy embrace of Cicera retinum and absurdity awaits you. Bite down, but whatever you do, don't let it turn into a snack-time disaster, or else you might find yourself participating in a medieval roast battle over dinner. Imagine that. Chapter 4. The Golden Sphere of Sticky Glory. Let's talk about food, or rather, the dazzling collection of oddly shaped delights that greeted you in the year 250 BCE. As you wander through the vibrant chaos of daily life in ancient Rome, your senses are bombarded with an enticing array of smells, spices so pungent they could knock a centurion off his feet, and sizzling meats that waft through the air like divine invitations. It's a culinary spectacle where every morsel appears as tantalizing as the last. But hold that thought. Today, you find yourself gravitating towards something remarkably peculiar, yet dangerously enticing. Deep-fried ricotta cheese balls, known affectionately in culinary circles as globuli. Imagine these divine spheres lovingly submerged in a thick, golden river of honey that glistens under the flickering torchlight. Yes, we're talking about a drizzle so sticky it could provide an indelible bond between you and your most regretful culinary choices. How did these delightfully gooey orbs come to be? Let's meander through their creation like a vaguely confused, cheese-loving pedestrian. Picture yourself in some chaotic kitchen, where perhaps a couple of excessively muscled Romans are attempting to tame this cheese-gone-mad concoction. It really is a teamwork effort. One person stirs, one person frantically searches for an appropriate frying vessel, and the third has conveniently fallen into an existential crisis over the ethics of deep-frying dairy. Ever had those moments while attempting to cook, only to wonder why you're trying to battle food with a pan instead of just praying to the ancient gods for takeaway? Yeah, the Romans shared those sentiments. It starts innocently enough, with ricotta cheese being finely mixed, rolled into spheres like little culinary dreams of the Mediterranean. The clamor of the kitchen resonates through time, not unlike a symphonic failed attempt at a culinary masterpiece. The sound of hammer against iron as they awkwardly punch their monogram into a piece of bread they erroneously hoped would act like the world's first pizza. Now, once these little ricotta orbs are crumbed with whatever bits of flour and herbs are lying around, because, let's be honest, organization wasn't a strong suit here, they're tossed into hot oil, sizzling like a Roman soldier yelling, "Veni, vidi, vici," as he tries to impress that one lady by the fountain. And here comes the twist. They don't just slide in. They leap into the bubbling chaos like gladiators into the Colosseum, ready for battle. And what a battle it is. Let's just say that if there's any kitchen correspondent to call, it would be the one tasked with reporting on splattered oil. Countless drops defying gravity like amateur basketball players in an attempt to hit the hoop. You can almost hear the delighted screams of the kitchen staff as the globuli start to form their delicate golden exterior. And somewhere off in the corner, a skeptical cat raises an eyebrow, a truly Roman sentiment of skepticism toward anything resembling potentially edible. Once safely out of their hot bath, these cheese balls have assembled on a bronze plate, their golden palates gleaming with the sticky embrace of honey. As you dive headfirst into this sticky wonderland, you can imagine the cynical observations rummaging through your mind. You're left pondering the real moral dilemma of all this sweetness. Should I eat this, or declare it a disaster zone of indecision? And let's not forget the glorious mess that awaits. Picture yourself trying to take the first enthusiastic bite. The honey stretches like silly string between your teeth, reminiscent of a toddler trying to explain what they did with their candy stash. You know the scene. It's a sticky situation where one moment you're in the throes of culinary ecstasy, and the next you're grappling with existential dread as you wonder if the honey will ever let go. Amidst this hilarity, how do you navigate the intervention of friends? They gather around, packed like sardines and armed with forks, as if you've opened Pandora's box and unleashed the sweaty chaos of shared culinary joy. And in the midst of all this sticky euphoria, you overhear them suggesting perhaps that honey should be the official Roman squat, because who could risk a bite without contemplating the possible stickiness levels? Ah, what revelry unfolds as you tip your head back, eyes gleaming with the mischief that comes from cavorting in gluttony, honey dribbling down your chin as if you were a fallen hero in a battle against hunger. And then the one friend, bless their tart little soul, pipes up, "Shouldn't we be looking for alchemy instead of trying to fry cheese?" As if this is a reasonable comparison. To which your mind cries, why not both? A metaphorical gold mine of fried cheese balls dipped in honey makes just as much sense as a mystery concoction that turns lead into further misfortune. And before long, you are collectively weaving stories of ancient gluttony, proclaiming your admiration for the unsung culinary genius known as the cheesemonger, because somewhere out there, modern chefs are missing an opportunity to appreciate all that sticky splendor just waiting to be revealed. So in your sticky month of culinary adventure, embrace the hilarity of the moment. You've unwittingly stepped into the annals of history, right where ricotta cheese meets bravado, proving yet again that humor is the glue, or honey, that binds us all, sticky or otherwise. this laughter bubbling over like that golden honey. There's nothing quite like the chaotic splendor of Rome wrapped around a fried cheese ball. And just like that, you realize, life is one sticky encounter after another, and some of those encounters taste better than others.
Chapter 5. Date me, honey.
Let's talk about desserts, those sweet little distractions that smooth over the rough edges of everyday chaos. Imagine yourself nestled in the cosmopolitan heart of Rome around 250 BCE, where the buzz of conversation swirls with the aroma of rich spices and the calls of street vendors hawking everything from fine silks to overly enthusiastic home-brewed wines. Life is less of a dull choir and more of one grand raucous opera. But what's this? Your senses drift like a wistful breeze towards something altogether unique. Custard-centric celebrations are all good, but it's these elegant little bundles of soft, dark dates that have you smitten. You've stumbled upon something dear to Roman culinary hearts. Dates densely packed with finely chopped almonds and drenched in a luxurious cascade of golden honey. Oh, marry me, honey. You might want to take a moment and ponder a question. If you were to wear food like an outfit, would you go for the glistening, honey-tinged date, or the suspicious gray mush that the Roman Senate might pass off as patrician pâté? These delectable olives of the sweet kind are the result of a veritable Roman culinary saga bubbling beneath the toga-clad surface. You can almost hear the frantic hustle of kitchen life echoing from the markets. Picture it, a bustling Roman kitchen where cooks are working harder than a chariot racer after a particularly bumpy incident at the Circus Maximus. They're rolling dates into small bundles so delicate you'd think they were aiming to impress emperors, or at least well-to-do senators suffering from culinary ennui. And if you think preparing dates is an exercise in simplicity, think again. Preparing these delightful morsels requires a dexterity akin to that of a seasoned gladiator. They have to be stuffed with almonds so finely chopped it would make even the most eager chef in Rome second-guess their life choices. Ever tried chopping an almond with the precision of a Roman sculptor while simultaneously brushing off the Pomeranian-sized crumbs that kindly represent the almond apocalypse? Now that's a hearty challenge. Imagine the smell of rich honey wafting through the air, teasing your senses as if the gods themselves decided to drop a little sugared delight right into your lap. Let's pause for a moment to have a conversation with yourself. Why can't I have a fragrant number in my hand when I'm cuddled up on a couch, binging on last week's Rome highlights? You could almost hear the sigh of your heart longing for the sweet embrace of a date, dressed in glamorous layers of heavenly honey, declaring, "You had me at nutritious." But wait, there's more. Ever wondered about the romantic ambiance that accompanies such sweet cake cloud creations? Imagine a gathering of Roman nobles, extravagant in their flowing robes, gathering around a table draped like a beautiful tapestry. Honeyed dates dance in the moonlight, sparkling with mischief, pausing only to nod approvingly at the senators arguing about philosophical musings or the merits of using olive oil strictly for cuisine rather than a makeshift hair gel. Not that anyone would want to confuse personal grooming with dinner, but you can't legislate everything, can you? As they populated the tables, the conversation twirls along with a bit too much wine, and the challenge becomes to maintain elegance while reaching for the dates. Your honeyed morsels sit like chubby little erudite gems, waiting to be picked up with the grace of a swan, but more likely to be seized with the dexterity of a bewildered crab. You know, pulling off that dainty bite while inadvertently slathering honey all over your toga as you look for the nearest available napkin. Absolutely classic. And one cannot overlook the inevitable mishaps. A dagger of a date slipping through fingers, landing with a soft plop right into that goblet of fine wine. The next thing you know, discussions about the ethics of democracy dissolve into laughter as the Senate sinks into revelry over sticky hands and the comical nature of living when the only thing lit is your ravenous enthusiasm for dessert. You could almost envision the spirit of Bacchus himself rolling his eyes at the whole spectacle. But, dear listener, picture this, as one noble inadvertently launches a honey-drenched date across the room, a sweet particle explosion of nutty glory, several other noblemen gasp dramatically, flinging their arms around in faux horror. Oh, how they clutch their hearts, as if their honor had been insulted by a mere morsel. The laughter erupts, creating a symphony of joy that echoes through the marble halls. Amidst the chaos, an old friend tugs your sleeve and asks, "Is this what they mean by the honeyed chaos of life?" In this zany world of ancient Rome, where even a fruit could spark delight, you find yourself reveling in the absurdity of it all. After all, what is life without a little honey to drizzle over the chaos? And much like the brilliantly chaotic moments of your own daily existence, this honey-glazed daze is impressing the very gods with its level of delightful mess. You can't help but wonder, why in the world did they ever invent napkins? So as you drift off into your dreams, let the memory of those delicate, honeyed dates take you away. Remember, every sticky encounter adds flavor to life, and sometimes the sweetest moments are wrapped up in layers of absurdity, just waiting to be unwrapped. A lesson that has endured long past those charming Roman days.
Chapter 6. Dining with Distinction. Let's discuss dinner, shall we? Not just any dinner, but a Roman soirée so extravagant it puts your cousin's last birthday bash to shame. Even the part where he broke his piñata and discovered it was filled with expired beans. So picture this. You're in ancient Rome, and the year is 250 BCE. The aromas wafting through the air are like a decadent whisper. Definitely not your average Tuesday night meal. As you slide into your well-appointed chair, you notice a feast fit for Jupiter himself, sprawling across a table that looks like it was stolen straight from a godly IKEA. Now, among the essential dishes served at this illustrious gathering, you find a delicacy that's the culinary equivalent of flashing your bank statement. A gloriously plump
dormouse, roasted to a golden brown perfection. And yeah, it's so fat, it practically rolls off the platter. Ever seen a dormouse look so fresh and inviting, adorned in a sticky cloak of honey? Just looking at it makes you feel as if you should be draped in a toga while sitting on a throne made entirely of soft cushions. Because who doesn't want to indulge in that kind of dinner? As fellow nobles greet you, each dressed to the nines in silk, draped over a body that's perhaps taken one too many liberties with the bread bowl, they delicately lift these little dormice, perhaps a bit too delicately, if you catch my drift, like they're about to announce the starter to the latest episode of Survivor Roman Edition. You catch that gleam in their eyes, akin to someone realizing they've found the last slice of pizza at a party. Unabashed glee, mingled with a hint of, should I really be doing this? But let's be honest, dormice as a dinner party centerpiece might raise a few eyebrows. After all, it's not just the taste that makes them a statement. It's the fact that you are essentially claiming, yes, my friend, I can afford a delicacy known for enacting grandeur and perhaps a sprinkle of moral confusion. As you dip your glorious morsel into a nearby bowl of honey, you might as well shout, status symbol, because that's what dining is all about in this part of the world. Imagine biting into the tender, buttery flesh of the dormouse, mixed with a hint of sweetness that feels like you're having a romantic affair with a dessert. And let's not forget the moments of trying to pick the little guy up with grace, as everyone around you watches with bated breath, like you're about to attempt a triumphant balancing act on a Roman tightrope. Miss that bite, and you've just earned yourself a slapstick moment for the ages. It's like trying to lift a cause for research funding at a university. One wrong move, and you might find yourself face to face with sticky honey and an unexpectedly slippery tabletop. And speaking of slippery situations, as you navigate this delicate operation, the nobles chatter animatedly about the latest.
Gossip, who married who should really be the one composing the Latin version of Dancing with the Stars, and most importantly, whether anchovy-infused honey actually qualifies as a dessert topic during a dictatorial dinner. Let's be clear, the stakes are high when you're mingling as a Roman elite. Every plump dormouse represents a morsel of reputation you're trying to build, or avoid reducing to ashes like a gladiator's ill-fated career. But behold, the fun begins when a somewhat inebriated senator at the other end of the table, who has taken more liberties with the wine jug than he should have, suddenly finds himself in a tight situation. Unbeknownst to him, a dormouse escapes from his own greasy grip, launching itself into an artistic arching motion and landing, rather dramatically, straight into another nobleman's goblet of wine. Oh, it's a scene worthy of a Roman comedy, and laughter becomes the delicious soundtrack to a night of delightful absurdity. Now, let's take a breather from this flurry of dormice and revelry. You really start to appreciate how dinner parties in the ancient Roman Empire were, well, the original wild parties. One couldn't just invite friends over for a Netflix and chill kind of situation. No. Here, the art of conversation was akin to fine wine, aged to perfection, with dashes of peculiarity like edible showmanship.
And that's when you realize that even in a time of emperors and batty senators, food was not merely sustenance. It was the magnificent bridge across cultures and an unexpected way to bond, through laughter shared over winged dormice and the misfortunes of wine-sloshing mishaps. As the night winds down, the sheer joy of dining on a gastronomic adventure in Rome reminds you that amid all the solemn discussions about governance and philosophy, sometimes life simply boils down to baked dormice slathered with honey and a side of humor. So, as you close your eyes and embrace the whimsical chaos of your own responsibilities, remember this. Amid the sticky situations of life, you still hold the platter of your experiences, dripping with taste and memories, not to mention a bit of honey to remind you that laughter is the sweetest of all. Now, gently let the echoes of laughter and honeyed flavors entice you into dreams where you navigate culinary art and awkward encounters just as our ancient Roman friends did, where every dinner was both a feast and a grand performance worthy of applause, just as you deserve. Chapter 7. The Honeyed Libum. Let's delve into the delectable world of dessert, shall we? And not just any dessert. Let's talk about libum, the ancient Roman cake that makes even your grandma's secret recipe look like it was scrawled on a napkin by a tipsy teenager. Imagine a dense, sweet loaf baked on a single leaf and drizzled with a thick, ruinous coating of golden honey, as if the gods decided to bless a simple flour cake with the sweet ambrosia of heaven. Honestly, think of it as cake's high society cousin that just returned from a world cruise and is eager to show off its new wardrobe. Now, as you float in this dreamy Roman ambiance, the aroma of baked goods and honey wafts through the air, tickling your nostrils like a playful kitten. You're enveloped in rich, warm scents. Think comfort wrapped in nostalgia, blanketed in the sticky embrace of dessert. The sight of honey-laden libum is more inviting than a cozy couch after a long day at work, and it triggers that universal question, why don't you have this in your life already? Forget the leftover takeout at home. We've thrown that comparison out the window. You settle into a plush couch, which would ideally be your Roman throne, and your eyes settle on the feast spread before you. Libum takes center stage, basking in its own golden glow, gleaming brighter than your most overzealous Instagram filter. Perhaps you're imagining trying this treat and feeling a gravitational pull stronger than a poorly tied toga. It would only be fitting if this cake were the center of some lavish banquet, where even the resident philosophers would momentarily stop their musings to bow before its sugary majesty. Now, picture the scene. You're mingling among nobles dressed in their fineries, discussing the latest gossip, or debating whether Romans could pull off a toga fashion week. Yet, as your eyes wander back to the libum, you're confronted with an existential crisis of epic proportions. How do you eat this divine creation without turning a simple slice into an elaborate performance worthy of a theater stage? So there you are, holding a piece of libum that feels like it's weighing down the entire universe in your hand. You'd think it would be simple enough, right? But mistake the first bite, and you're suddenly staring down a honey waterfall, sporting a face that looks like a toddler just discovered finger paint. That thick coating of honey drips down your chin like a sticky crown of triumph. And who needs dignity when you can have dessert? As you investigate the cake closely, you start to appreciate the craftsmanship that went into this masterpiece. Made primarily from flour and cheese, it's like someone bravely decided to mix the worlds of bread and dessert, essentially giving humanity the glorious loophole of legitimate dinner dessert consumption. Why, yes, you'd declare to your friends, this cake contains dairy, clearly responsible eating. Meanwhile, onlookers chuckle at the comedy of errors unfolding. One noble, slightly inebriated from too much wine, attempts to articulate deep philosophical thoughts about life as he, too, gets a bit too adventurous with his slice of libum. Suddenly, the honey takes flight, gliding across the table like art unleashed, clinging to a toga here, a beautifully embroidered cloak there, and creating what can only be described as the first ever example of honey-based modern art. It's a sticky masterpiece worthy of a museum exhibit. Now, you can't help but compare the utterly absurd nature of this situation to your own life. Ever tried to eat your favorite slice of cake while simultaneously catching up on your favorite show? It's like a game of culinary cat and mouse. One moment, you're savoring sweet flavors while trying to balance a phone in one hand, and the next, your dessert is taking a dangerously familiar dive toward your lap. If there's one gift Romans gave us, it's this eternal struggle between indulging in deliciousness and maintaining some semblance of grace. But, inevitably, you have to ask yourself, is it really dessert if you're not wearing a bit of it? You whisper into your glass of wine, seeking a conspiratorial nod from your noble friends, while the sweet remnants of libum cling to your fingers like a sticky vow of dessert devotion. Will you wash your hands later, or let the honey bond you with your fellow eaters? It's a gamble. As the evening rolls on, you reflect on this iconic Roman dessert ritual, where libum isn't just food, it's the experience of laughter, chaos, and community weaved together by a simple loaf drizzled in honey, bringing people together in a delightful mess. As the sun sets and the feasting continues, you lean back, letting principles of indulgence and whimsy take over your thoughts, reminding yourself that there's humor even in the most honey-drenched of predicaments. In fact, as you ponder the adventure of dessert night in Rome, you can't help but think, sometimes life is simply more enjoyable when you embrace the sticky situations. So go forth, dear listener, and dream sweetly of libum and laughter, the universal joys that have tethered humankind together through the ages, ensuring that even in the sticky chaos of life, dessert is always a reason to laugh. And who doesn't need that in their dreams?
Chapter 8. A Laborer's Breakfast Fit for a Madman.
Hey there, sleepyhead. Tonight we embark on a culinary journey more questionable than a soggy toga on laundry day. Grab your time machine and strap in, because we're about to discover a breakfast that the Roman proletariat would consider as splendid as a three-headed goat, Your typical morning meal in 250 BCE wouldn't make Michelin stars blush, let's just say. Now, let's take a moment for self-reflection. Have you ever had a breakfast so ambitious it questioned your entire life choices? You know, like that time you thought a midnight cheese platter was a good idea, only to wake up feeling like an exploded piñata? Okay, you've probably been there more than once. Here, in the grainy dawn of the Roman Republic, your gastronomical decisions aren't just confusing, they're borderline absurd. But I assure you, they are entertaining. Congratulations! You just woke up in a humble Roman villa, if you can call it that. The sun shines through the slats of your slightly crooked walls, illuminating an unremarkable mound of hard, stale bread. It's the kind of bread that could double as a doorstop if you had doors. The crust is so hard you half suspect it's been training for a triathlon. This is the breakfast of champions, or at least a breakfast for someone who was definitely championing the cause of unyielding carbohydrates. Oh, but don't let that rock-hard bread deter you. For you see, your delicious morning treat comes alive in a way that would make any modern health guru faint. It's lovingly soaked in soapian venom. Yes, you heard right. We're not talking about the kind of soap used to cleanse the soul. This is an early version of a not-so-pleasant liquid that's likely to remind you of a sewage backing up, with a hint of existential dread. It's like if someone mixed the worst rat poison with the first drafts of the Roman Empire's very own energy drink. Good luck finding a Yelp review for that one. Now, let's talk about your trusty companion for breakfast today. A rather unremarkable cup of murky, watered-down red wine. Because nothing screams feast fit for a human quite like a beverage that looks like it's been through a century of decay. Imagine the swirling concoction gently sloshing like a rebellious wave in an old amphora, overwhelming your nostrils with its aggressive echoes of grape and despair. It's cheap, it's cheerful, and it's here to give you cheap, liquid-soaked calories, because nothing says responsible adults like the thrill of daytime intoxication. You lift the cup with a gravitas reserved for solemn rituals. This isn't just breakfast, it's your breakfast, and it has more mysterious ingredients than an ancient witch's potion. You take a cautious sip, and the taste could be generously described as something a lazy bacchanalian would serve on the side of a feast. The kind the gods might spit out after the first drink. How?
Do these delightful culinary choices align with modern life, you ask? Well, have you ever felt the sheer triumph of finishing off leftover pizza way past its prime? Maybe giving a nod of respect to that expired yogurt lurking at the back of your fridge, or perhaps battling with an overripe banana that you convinced yourself could still be a smoothie. It's essentially the breakfast showdown of the ages, a flat-out competition of survival against questionable food choices. It's a fight that our Roman laborers would totally respect, even if they might roll their eyes at our inability to soak bread in soapian venom to unlock all available nutrients. As you tear into that rock-hard bread chunk, your teeth protest in horror, and it becomes painfully clear that you've entered a fierce wrestling match with breakfast. But hallelujah, that soapian venom seeps into the bread,
rendering it less like petrified wood and more like an insipid sponge. You take a tentative bite and immediately feel not one, but 5 bizarre sensations wash over you. It's a culinary roller coaster of flavors, mostly bad, but it's remarkable nonetheless. Your neighbors, the nosy Romans, are already downing their own bowls of assorted tragedy. One fellow is energetically discussing a new fabricated method of ancient alchemy while munching on his soggy bread, as if he's guaranteed to invent the next form of practical sorcery. Nearby, another laborer is explaining to his earthenware cup that yes, today will be the day he makes bread a form of personal expression. Today I shall create a loaf that sings, he exclaims dramatically, producing a loaf that looks more dejected than triumphant. Each bite becomes a balance between survival and social engagement. After all, you can't go starving while discussing the latest philosophies of Socrates or sipping on cheap, regrettable wine. Put in a lively mix of banter and absurd declarations, and suddenly breakfast becomes a shared comedy of errors, ensuring that hilarity reigns even if your stomach is actively negotiating terms with itself. So you chew through the dilemma, battling the unending energy crisis of breakfast, while your inner philosopher debates whether it's worth finishing this $5 meal or treating it as a rite of passage. The irony of it all is unmissable. In a time when every bite could mean the difference between thriving or mere survival, you're dissecting a breakfast tragedy that would take a village to fully comprehend. Ah, the joys of being a Roman laborer. As you wipe your mouth and sigh at the delightful absurdity of your morning feast, remember that even in the least glamorous of breakfasts, there's laughter, camaraderie, and perhaps a recipe for a good night's sleep, just as long as it doesn't include any soapian venom. Consider that your personal wake-up call. Chapter 9. The Grilling Scandal of Lucanica. Hey there, sleepyhead. Tonight we drift into a bustling Roman street market, where the air is thick with the kind of aromas that would have made even the most ambitious of culinary dreamers question their life choices. Imagine, if you will, the smell of spices mingling with something that resembles burnt rubber, all brought to you by street vendors grilling something they coyly refer to as Roman sausages. Lucanica to those in the know. So, grab your best imaginary fork and let's dive into this questionable culinary escapade. Oh, but wait. Before we take a whiff of the smoke-infused drama, let's think for a second. Have you ever been on a diet that promised instant results, but actually just left you in an existential crisis at the salad bar? Or maybe you've indulged in that gourmet food truck dish only to realize it's just a glorified hot dog wearing a chef's hat. What about the time you bravely tried to make a fancy dinner at home and ended up ordering pizza instead? Yes, my friend, we all have traumas over food, and tonight we're about to amplify that glorious chaos with the robust scent of grilling meat, burned like your hopes during a potluck night. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the summer of 250 BCE, in the heart of the ever-inventive Roman Republic. The streets around you pulsate with the urgency of daily life, where merchants hawk their wares so passionately they could easily mistake selling fish for an encore at the Colosseum. You stand amidst a marketplace that looks like it could spontaneously combust from sheer enthusiasm and questionable hygiene. Sounds good, right? Well, settle in, because the real magic happens at the sizzling stalls, where street vendors stand like gladiators in the arena of snack attacks. Picture them, your contemporaries in culinary crime, standing around mismatched braziers, fervently gripping metal skewers that could qualify as weapons in their own right. They twist and turn sausages that have been seasoned so liberally they practically scream for mercy. The term greasy is an understatement. These sausages glisten menacingly under the sun's rays, looking like neglected armor from a long-forgotten duel. As the vendor shakes his fist, a cloud of spicy smoke wafts through the air, a seductive and suspicious embrace. You take a deep breath, your lungs filling with the suspiciously meaty scent that mingles with something like despair and unfulfilled dreams. It's an aroma that whispers sweet nothings while simultaneously demanding you reconsider your dinner plans. A slight cough escapes as the haze tickles your throat, sounding alarmingly similar to an ex-girlfriend's wrath, sudden and overwhelming. Curiously, you observe as the locals line up with an eagerness reminiscent of children before a sledgehammer-wielding Santa Claus. Each person clutches their hard-earned denarii, contemplating whether Lucanica is a delightful treat or an act of misguided bravery. They appear undaunted, wrestling with temptation like it's a one-on-one match against their gastrointestinal integrity. In Roman terms, this meat smorgasbord is a culinary revolution. It's like a foot race across all the bakeries in town, but only if the winners are given dubious sausage wrapped in whatever herbs the vendor could find on his morning stroll, or, as he whimsically terms it, fine artisan sausages. A good strategy against competition, for sure. Ever had a dubious food encounter that took years off your life expectancy? You might even start to empathize with the poor souls who delve into this adventure with reckless abandon. As you inch closer, you can hear the vendor shouting something vaguely enthusiastic, presumably about the freshness of his product. You can't help but wonder if freshness in today's metric is akin to the least spoiled in olden days. The vendor proudly brandishes his wares like trophies, inviting passers-by to partake in what looks like a sizzling game of culinary roulette. Each bite is more like an excursion to a mysterious land. Will it be blissful euphoria or immediate regret? Only your stomach knows. The moment you decide to indulge in this grilled masterpiece, you feel a genuine sense of honor and mischief trying to intertwine within you. The vendor hands you a bun that looks akin to a pillow that had seen better days, then layers on that suspiciously chewy sausage, like he's draping a royal robe on a very confused dignitary. A bright splash of mustard adorns it like a dubious crown, and now you have your tiny feast, the kind that makes even the toughest legionnaire weep with joy. As you take a tentative bite, your teeth encounter an unexpected level of resistance. The sausage fights back, like an unwelcome relative at a family reunion. Chew, chew, chew. With each laborious bite, flavors explode, not with a classic Roman elegance, but rather with the enthusiasm of a failed cooking class. It's a taste that tells tales of herbs mingling aggressively with spices, and a meaty chew that could probably double as a workout for your jaw. Would you call that a win? Only the Romans would benevolently deem this excellent cuisine. In a moment of rare clarity, you pause and ponder, why, oh why, do you feel compelled to partake in this grilled mess? What deep-seated desire drives you to elevate the less than reputable Lucanica to this throne of questionable choices? But rest assured, that grease-slicked morsel and its sizzling betrayal might just lead to the greatest food coma you'll ever know. You can thank these brave Roman vendors for introducing the highest level of food advocacy after this grilled adventure. As you finish your meaty conquest amidst the surrounding cheers and laughter, you can't help but indulge in that peculiar sense of camaraderie. You may have dared to step into the uncertain culinary realm, but you did it surrounded by fellow quirky Romans, and that's what matters. You make a mental note. Next time, perhaps a salad or two wouldn't be such a bad idea. Or maybe breakfast will once again turn into the delightful chaos that is the unexpected culinary arts of a bustling Roman market. Ah, but sleep calls, my weary traveler. As your journey through the culinary chaos winds down, let those absurd flavors mingle with the echoes of laughter, cozying you up for a night of restful dreams. Tomorrow, who knows what other delightful surprises await in the endlessly entertaining world of Roman antics. Chapter 10. The Fiery Essence of Garum. Hey there, sleepy wanderer. Tonight we embark on a scented journey to a bustling Roman marketplace, where the air is not just thick with aromas, but positively wading through the rich, pungent waters of culinary chaos. Imagine a pot so ancient it could tell stories. Stories that may include episodes of food poisoning and bizarre Roman social faux pas. Hence, the hero of our tale? A clay amphora, modestly cracked and crusty around the rim, overflowing with dark, brown, oily garum. Yes, my friend, garum, the illustrious fermented fish sauce that seasoned every meal from the lowest plebeian to the grandest patrician. So grab your imaginary napkin and prepare for a sensory experience that could slap you awake even if you were in the depths of an immense food coma. But before we dive in, let's ponder some absurd scenarios. Have you ever heard the phrase, "You are what you eat"? Well, if that's true, Roman citizens must have smelled like one big fried fish, contributing to their haute cuisine reviews, reading like horror stories. What would it be like to impress a guest by draping a fishy cape around your shoulders? And can you imagine trying to explain to your friends that garum is the secret sauce in your famous spaghetti, only for them to assume it's a trendy new cologne? You see, food choices have always wielded a peculiar power. Now, let's set the stage in this ancient world. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 250 BCE, smack dab in the chaotic heart of the Roman Republic. The sun gleams off the cobblestones as merchants holler about the latest must-have items. One can only imagine what they might be hawking. Perhaps it's last season's olive oil, or that vaguely suspicious seafood from the Tiber that's so fresh it might just swim back to its watery home at any moment. As you roam, you spot a vendor, his stall laden with amphorae stacked precariously like they're about to embark on a crumbling rendition of a Roman tower. One particular amphora immediately draws your attention. Its garum contents seem to beckon you like a siren luring sailors to their doom. And you, ever the glutton for punishment, approach with a mixture of dread and intrigue. The gregarious vendor greets you with unabashed joy, brandishing his ladle like a war trophy. Fresh garum, the essence of flavor, the ambrosia of the gods, he exclaims, his eyes sparkling with fervor. You take a cautious sniff, only to find yourself engulfed by a wave of olfactory chaos, a jumbled mix of fishy nostalgia and a hint of despair that wafts up from the depths of the amphora, reminiscent of that one fish market you vowed never to return to. It's almost enough to knock you off your feet, but you resist the urge to flee, choosing instead to forge ahead into this culinary adventure. Do I dare try this? You muse to yourself, struggling against the primal instinct to avert your nose. After all, can a tiny, fishy potion really elevate your mundane barley bread to a new gastronomic plane? It's like trying to convince your chicken to take a dip in a pool of sriracha. Fascinating and slightly disturbing all at once. As the vendor cheerfully pours a generous helping over your bread, you find yourself in an uncomfortably familiar scenario. Ever had a roommate who insisted on over-seasoning everything, leading to a constant struggle for the perfect balance of flavors? You can almost hear your taste buds screaming for relief just thinking about the impending flavor explosion. That's garum for you. Part sauce, part high-stakes gamble. It's like participating in a culinary game show where no one understands the rules. The vendor eagerly watches you take your first bite, grinning like a child on Christmas morning. You chew. The taste is unexpected. Imagine swallowing a friendship between a sardine and a 5-pound block of pure salt. Your taste buds cry out rebellion, questioning your life choices, while your stomach sends you detailed notes on how you might regret this later. This is basically liquid silver, the vendor insists, giving you a look that says he still believes that fish sauce truly holds the secret to eternal youth. You nod along, but deep down, you sense that the secret is probably best kept buried in the depths of ancient culinary history, away from the modern palate. All around you, locals indulge in this fishy fare, ever hopeful for that savory life they've been promised. Can you blame them? Maybe they know something you don't. Or perhaps they've simply accepted their grim reality with a spirit of gritty cheer. Above all, it is a reminder that even with all the garum flowing around, the Roman Empire thrived, not in spite of the culinary chaos, but because of it. Kind of like how you survived that one ill-fated dinner party where you discovered your friend's idea of cooking meant microwaving frozen food. And what might you learn from this garum experience? Ah, yes. While exploring culinary wonders that might elevate ordinary dishes to paradise, one must always remember to approach with a sense of humor and, if possible, a good dose of existential dread. As you finish your garum-laden concoction, you glance around and notice the camaraderie emerging among your fellow experimenters. You all breathe a collective sigh and share a moment of triumph, even amid the fishy fragrance floating through the air. So sleep tight, my brave culinary explorer. As your journey through Roman gastronomical eccentricities winds to a close, allow the lingering echoes of laughter and bemusement to cradle you into a peaceful slumber, leaving behind a world flavored with both chaos and camaraderie. And remember, when in doubt, maybe stick with something a little less fishy. Chapter 11. The Groggy Wisdom of Cabbage and Vinegar. Hey guys, welcome back to another delightful descent into the absurd annals of history that are often more amusing than they are educational. Tonight, we wake up alongside a groggy Roman citizen slumped over a counter that has seen better days, like, the early morning of last Tuesday. Our hero is not sipping some fancy latte or scrolling through the day's news. No, they're engaging in the ancient art of medicinal relief through the use of, wait for it, spiced vinegar and a generous helping of fried cabbage. Picture this: culinary brilliance, or the keystone of a questionable Roman health regimen. You be the judge. Now, if you enjoy these whimsical journeys through time, consider giving a thumbs up, subscribing, and commenting on your favorite ancient remedy, preferably one that doesn't involve the phrase cabbage surprise. But only if you actually enjoy this. After all, we do respect your right to exist in this chaotic world devoid of fish sauce. So, dim those lights, crank up that imaginary fan to mimic a gentle Roman breeze, and get snug in your favorite sleeping attire, preferably not made of cabbage leaves. As you cradle yourself into the soft embrace of your blanket, here's a thought. Why ever did people think that fried cabbage was a good idea in the first place? What kind of ancient Roman influencer was out there wilting our taste buds with the dreadful combination of vinegary cabbage and, dare we say it, a touch of humiliation? Congratulations! You've just woken up in Roman Rome circa 250 BCE, where using vinegar as a health tonic might get you more famous than any Instagram influencer today. You can almost hear the bustling crowd outside, yelling about everything from taxes to terrible gluten-free bread. Yes, bread, the original tinder for culinary disaster in ancient Rome. And just when you thought cooking was a delicate art, these folks were out here experimenting with fried cabbage and confused about how fermented fish sauce made it all to the dinner table. The air is thick with the scent of both opportunity and desperation. The bustling marketplace invites you into a world of chaos, where every stall has a unique name that translates roughly to "not my problem," "why are you still here," and of course, "no returns." But fear not. You find yourself drawn to a vendor, the proud seller of what may well be the kingdom's most alluring spiced vinegar, an aesthetic delight that resembles something you'd rather pour over your windowsill than ingest. So there you are, staring down the barrel of a plate stacked high with fried cabbage, like discovering a hidden level in a video game you didn't even know existed. You lift a piece with trembling fingers. It glistens under the weak daylight, shiny and slippery. The textures must be questioning their existence. Are we really a part of nature, or are we just here to torment this poor Roman?
So, you mentally prepare yourself for what may be the worst first date in culinary history. What if I told you this will cure your entire existence? The vendor crows, excitement bubbling over like an awkward first date where you accidentally mispronounce their name while trying to impress them. Do you dare partake in such a bold promise? Or is this just another marketing trick, like the modern-day miracle detox juice that guarantees you'll lose 20 pounds and your will to live? You take a deep breath, throw caution to the wind, and take a bite. The chaotic flavors collide in your mouth, creating an orchestra of disappointment mixed with a hint of betrayal. Ever tried to convince your brain that it's consuming gourmet delicacies while simultaneously questioning every life choice that led to this moment? It's like flossing with pine needles, if you can picture that, a delightful experience that also doubles as a part-time horror show. Everyone around you looks equally engaged, gnawing at their own fried cabbage with the fervor typically reserved for celebrations. Must be good, you think. After all, misery loves company. Maybe they all signed a blood oath along with a dark promise to never let anyone know just how terrible this whole eating experience really is. You catch fleeting glances of individuals giving each other thumbs up, while your taste buds collectively gasp in disbelief. It's cabbage solidarity. And there it is, the moment of reckoning. As you chew, the thought sneaks in. Is this what ancestors wanted? A legacy of cabbage slack and vinegar joy? Who decided that a meal so full of disappointment could still be celebrated? It's existential food-splosion therapy, an inner transformation sparked by a vegetable. You might even feel a sense of kinship with the Romans around you, suffering through this catchy culinary calamity together. Perhaps the true healing power lies not in the food, but in the shared laughter at the absurdity of it all. As you manage to swallow the last morsel, you look around at the faces, some bemused, others conflicted, all oddly satisfied with this miserable culinary undertaking. Then, as if by divine intervention, it happens. Someone lets out a hearty laugh that cuts through the air like rare rhythm. You join in, and suddenly it feels less like a dinner of regret and more like an uncanny comedy routine where the punchline just happens to be the vegetables you just devoured. So sleep tight, dear travel companion, as you sail into dreams filled with spiced vinegar and unexpected camaraderie. Remember this: in the grand comedy of history, there will always be a people, a place, and a dish that makes you laugh, and perhaps, just perhaps, a humble cabbage longing for glory.
Chapter 12. Hannibal's Tiny Blood Oath. Hey guys, welcome back to yet another ridiculous journey through the labyrinth of history. Tonight, we find ourselves in a moment that's quite a bit heavier than your grocery bags after an impulse buy at the farmer's market. Picture it. The year is 250 BCE, and you're standing in a temple surrounded by more blood than a vegan's worst nightmare. A bloody sacrificial altar, to be specific. Yes, nothing screams commitment like placing your tiny hand down amidst the remnants of a goat who may have been having a much better day before becoming an unwitting ceremonial prop. But before we dive into that delightful image, let's talk about what you're about to experience. Think of it as a bedtime story, curated by a history professor who's just had too much caffeine and perhaps a questionable relationship with the idea of personal space. You're going to golf through the allegorical meadows of historical absurdity, experience the shenanigans of a pint-sized warlord in training, and explore why swearing revenge at an altar might require a lawyer present. Spoiler alert, it's not as dramatic as it sounds, but definitely funnier. Promise. If you enjoy these hilariously chaotic explorations through history, consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and maybe even leaving a comment on your favorite ancient ritual that went horribly wrong. Like the time they tried to invent a festival in honor of the potato and ended up rolling in mud. But only do this if you actually enjoy it, because sharing is caring, and we respect your freedom to binge-watch cat videos instead. So now, dim those lights, crank up your imaginary fan to simulate a cool Mediterranean breeze, and nestle comfortably into your blanket fortress. Are you catching the drift? Imagine you're introducing yourself to an ancient Roman, someone who has a knack for all things bizarre. What's the deal with those tunics, you might wonder? Do you guys even know what a washing machine is? Or perhaps generate a mini existential crisis with questions like, why are we sacrificing goats? Did someone lose a bet? Congratulations. You've just woken up in 250 BCE, where the only thing scarier than the Romans' culinary skills is the amount of mischief they could stir up with a mere parchment. The air smells like a mixture of incense and something akin to desperation. A wonderful ambiance for a day of drama. And there you find Hannibal Barca, a mere 9 years old, but already holding on to a promise heavier than a whale at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Picture this: a small boy, his cherubic face illuminated by flickering torchlight, approaches an altar that might have seen better days, back when people thought splitting a goat in half was a fun way to spend a Tuesday. His little hand trembles not from fear, but from the sheer gravity of his situation. This is no ordinary day for Hannibal. It's a rite of passage, one that includes more symbolism than a poorly constructed love poem. As he places his tiny palm down on the altar, stained crimson with the sacrifices of pawns before him, you can practically hear the dramatic music crescendoing in the background. Where's your popcorn? Because the drama is about to kick in. You glance around. There's a priest mumbling some incoherent prayers, likely wishing he'd skipped the last goat steak dinner. But really, who could blame him? If your workday consisted of flipping through ancient scrolls and occasionally stabbing a goat, you'd need to lean into the strong drink too. As Hannibal swears his lifelong oath against Rome, you wonder if he's secretly thinking, wouldn't it be easier to just have a cup of herbal tea and settle our differences through friendly negotiation? But this isn't some soft-spoken therapy session. This is the ancient Mediterranean, where words hold weight and revenge is the romanticized equivalent of a weekend Netflix binge. vengeance is served with a side of glory. And let's face it, children in ancient Rome really had a knack for dramatizing their feelings. His little voice rings out as he solemnly declares, "I will avenge my father and my people," an oath that would send shivers down the spines of even the hardiest Roman senators. You hold back a chuckle because it's not every day you see a kid commit to a vengeance plan with the seriousness of someone signing a mortgage agreement. Is this a good idea, you think? I mean, couldn't he just join the local bowling league instead? Much lower stakes and all. Hannibal craves a legacy, not just another childhood hobby like herding sheep or dreading algebra homework. No, he seeks the kind of legacy that makes him the stuff of legends, to stick out in history like a sore thumb, or that one sock that always goes missing in the laundry. But alas, there's no time for shoehorned metaphors about laundry. You hear the bellowing of goats and a tugging at your consciousness, suggesting that maybe you should join in this madness. And as Hannibal raises his fist, you realize he is not just a boy. At this moment, he's reborn as a tiny gladiator of revenge. And all you can think is what horrors the Romans are about to face. Just then, a goat's bleat echoes through the temple, breaking the seriousness of the atmosphere like someone accidentally letting a fart slip in a solemn assembly. The priests glare, momentarily distracted as they wrestle with their inner chuckles. Who knew that conflict could come with comedic complications? Ah, the ancient world, a playground where blood vows and goat sacrifices go hand in hand, much like your friends cracking open a six-pack while binge-watching another series on Netflix. So, hold on tight, dear dreamer, as you dive deeper into Hannibal's adventures. In this dreamy odyssey, blood oaths and laughter collide into a history more tangled than your headphones after a long commute. With each moment, you are enveloped in a world where silliness reigns supreme, and history is woven together with threads of vengeance and absurdity, stained with the delightful hue of goat's blood. And speaking of adventures, how will Hannibal's journey unfold? Could it be filled with triumphs and mischief akin to our own life experiences? Only time, and a bit of sleep, will reveal just how historical this story will be. Chapter 13. The Trudging Titans of the Alps. Hey guys, welcome back to another historically hazardous escapade, where we dive headfirst into the eclectic mix of ancient history and sheer absurdity. Tonight, we find ourselves with something colder than that half-finished pint of ice cream you forgot at the back of the freezer. A band of war elephants wrestling with an icy alpine pass. Picture this. It's 250 BCE, and you're nestled safely in your blankets. But outside, those pachydermic powerhouses are strutting around like they own the snowy peaks, while their Carthaginian handlers are doing their best impression of ninjas on a slip and slide. Imagine, if you will, The harsh alpine winds howling like angry banshees, sending chills down the backs of soldierly spines dressed in tunics that offer about as much warmth as a single-layer quilt from a thrift shop. Seriously, do you wonder what the sales pitch was for those tunics? One size fits all, unless you're particularly large or small, and may include a layer of frost as a delightful surprise. So grab that vintage fleece blanket, dim those lights, and settle into your cozy corner like you're nesting in a giant marshmallow. But first, contemplate this. What on earth could possess someone to march a herd of disgruntled elephants over icy terrain? Did they think the elephants were part-time skiers? Did they mistake the Alps for the integrated fun zone of the Mediterranean? And why, oh why, are these soldiers not just building snowmen instead of trudging through the snow, freezing their behinds off? Congratulations! You've just woken up in 250 BCE, where the only thing colder than your spirits after reading a winter weather report is the air on this very treacherous alpine pass. And in front of you, there's an entire battalion, complete with their oversized, stubborn pets, lumbering slowly, each war elephant encased in blankets that look suspiciously like the drapery from the local temple's finest living room. Let's set the scene. The air is crisp, with a cold that bites harder than your in-laws at Thanksgiving dinner. The ground is uneven, littered with rocks, and ice patches lurking like the ghosts of bad choices past. As you watch, the first elephant strides forward. Its enormous foot slips, sending it into a staggering shimmy that could only be described as an elaborate dance move gone wrong, evoking more laughter than concern. And what comes next? A series of loud, baffled trumpets that echo through the mountain like a distantly misplaced jazz band. You can hear the soldiers groan, gripping their weapons tightly and trying to maintain their composure as they navigate the icy chaos, clutching their tunics while muttering ancient curses that would likely make even a Roman centurion gasp. Who thought this was a good idea? You can almost hear them lament. Wasn't crossing the Alps supposed to be a simple Sunday stroll? But alas, such was the fate of the
Carthaginian army, and alongside them trudge their great beasts, all 2 to 4 tons of pure muscle, furiously flapping their ears as if to say, "Listen, I didn't sign up for this wintry amusement park ride." And it doesn't help that these magnificent creatures, known for their majesty in battle, now look like overgrown fluffy marshmallows slipping around on roller skates. As they plow on, albeit with a bit of difficulty, you might wonder how they even trained an elephant for such an expedition. Now, Dumbo, when I say climb mighty mountains, I mean really commit to the whole majestic look, not the waddle like a penguin vibe. Perhaps there was a Carthaginian training manual that read, Step 1, find the flattest area and pray fervently. It always works with elephants. Wind whips past your ears, battering the soldiers like an army of pesky gnats.
reminding you of those infamous camping trips where you slipped into the tent at midnight, only to discover it was also the local raccoon rave. The Carthaginian soldiers' faces are painted with a mix of determination and sheer regret. You can practically imagine them reflecting on their life choices, asking, "Should I have just become a baker instead? At least dough doesn't slip around like a rebellious teenager." Now the elephants, with their giant ears flapping helplessly against the winter chill, are less like war machines and more like furry ice sculptures battling for balance. Each resounding thud of their feet resonates as they struggle onward, hooves slipping on the icy rock, a reminder that nature indeed does not care for your grand military tactics. And just as a soldier slips on the kiss-off, now cursing loudly, you wonder how on earth they became strategic masterminds in the first place. Ah, yes, we'll carry our tactics through the snow into battle, not kittens but elephants, with a speedy execution that could rival bad internet connections. Visualize this beautiful chaos. The wind rages on, the elephants grunt and stumble, soldiers are face-palming in defeat, and in the background, an eagle might as well be snickering in delight from his lofty perch, enjoying the bizarre spectacle unfold. But not to worry, dear dreamer. Amid all the hilarity, the camaraderie of the Carthaginian troops carries a whisper of valiant determination. They hold tight to each other, just like you might clutch your favorite blanket on a cold night as you dive deeper into the whimsical world of history. Who would have thought that the romance of war could go so awry? And finally, as they continue their trudging trek, this scene stands testament to the resilient spirit of not just one people, but of every hapless soul who's ever dared to step out into an unexpected snowstorm. So prepare for more antics ahead, as the journey of Hannibal and his not-so-smooth expedition is far from over. Each stumble, each hilarious misstep, we're just getting started on this frosty adventure through history. Chapter 14, The Mists of Ambush. Hey guys, welcome back to another drowsy dive into history's hazy chaos, where we explore not just the past, but do so with the grace of a baby deer discovering its legs for the first time. Tonight, we embark on a journey so absurdly tangled that it rivals your last attempt at cooking a new recipe. Roman legions charging into a narrow valley shrouded in morning mist, unaware that an entire brigade of Carthaginian forces is hiding nearby, likely plotting a surprise party instead of a surprise ambush. Imagine, if you will, the Roman soldiers marching forth with boundless confidence, the kind of bravado usually reserved for karaoke nights after 3 too many drinks. Seriously, who wouldn't feel like a fearsome conqueror when draped in a toga that whispered sweet nothings to their proverbial biceps? But hold up a second. Ever wonder what was running through their minds as they blindly flooded into this misty veil? Was it, yes, this is definitely the shortcut to glory? Or perhaps, I should really have grabbed a map, or at least a compass. Now, pause for a moment. Picture the morning air, crisp and cold, bringing with it a scent hurled together by nature's wild imagination. Think damp earth mingling with the remnants of last night's questionable stew. Can you almost taste the anticipation? a sensation akin to biting into a sandwich, only to discover it's stuffed with pickles in place of what you thought was turkey. Is that strategic genius in the air, or just yesterday's leftovers? Just ahead lies the valley, thick with swirling fog, rolling around like a sleepy cat who has heard the can opener in action. Ubiquitous, mysterious, and absolutely not to be underestimated. In this swirling mass, the valiant Romans stomp forward, all shiny armor gleaming like a newly polished penny. Their boots clomp against the uneven ground, echoing loudly as if they each carried a small personal drum. And yet, it's the deftly concealed Carthaginian forces, ticking like a well-choreographed clock, lurking among the shadows, that we should be worried about. They're like that friend who always knows when to jump out and scare you, only this time they're armed to the teeth. As you settle into your cozy nook, allow me to ask you this. Ever tried sneaking up on someone while holding a creaky wooden floor? Imagine these soldiers trying to tiptoe stealthily, all while navigating a minefield of branches, rocks, and unintentional poetic tragedy. "Oops, sorry, General," Ted whispers as he steps right onto the twig that betrays them faster than your sport-crazed uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Meanwhile, amongst the Roman ranks, you can picture a particularly cocky centurion strutting about as if he was wrapped in a superhero cape of invincibility, instructing his men with the utmost swagger. "Onward, men! Victory awaits!" And just moments later, you can almost hear the collective thought bubble rising over the legion. "Could he maybe chill on the motivational speeches? I'm just trying to get my morning eggs." But let's not get too caught up on the Romans, because in the hills, the Carthaginians lie in wait. With the fervor of kids on a sugar rush, they're ready to pounce like over-enthusiastic kittens on a laser pointer dot. Picture their faces, all seriousness aside, barely stifling giggles as the jokes fly. "Did you hear the one about the centurion who forgot his shield? Spoiler alert, he didn't stand a chance." As the scene unfolds, we can imagine the Romans striding deeper into the mist, their spirits burgeoning, as if they've just received word that the snack bar is open for business. Yet little do they know, there's a hidden battalion of Carthaginian forces, each one trained not just in stealth, but in the subtle art of mischief. You can almost picture them adopting a lullaby-like stance, whispering sweet promises of early retirement to an unwittingly oblivious Roman below. Meanwhile, the Roman generals are emerging from their fog of optimism when suddenly, out of nowhere, and I mean literally, here come the Carthaginians, like a surprise wave crashing upon a beach just as you'd begun to relax, tossing sand into your sandwich. And if you think this is just any old ambush, oh no. The Carthaginians have chosen this moment with the same energy that you have when picking out the perfect outfit for a first date. The stakes are high, and every moment counts. The Romans, still blissfully unaware, are about to face off with opponents who've got a knack for theatrics. Just imagine the broad grins on the faces of those warriors as smiles morph into battle shouts that echo through the valley like a cup of coffee gone cold, sudden, shocking, and mostly unwanted. Amid the fog, the clash of swords will echo like your neighbor's dog barking at 3 a.m., shaking the very ground beneath them. Suddenly, the morning mist transforms from a gentle embrace to a frenzied dance of chaos, where the Romans' misplaced confidence meets the Carthaginians' explosive welcome party. If only everyone had known that no one really wins when one side forgets to check for surprise guests. So there we have it, an ill-fated yet oddly hilarious expedition that showcases just how easily overconfidence can lead to a rendezvous with disaster. The resolve of these ambitious legionaries and their comical miscalculations really remind us that in the grand battle of life, sometimes the fog, the uncertainty, is just as formidable a foe as any soldier on the front lines. Now, dear dreamer, continue to drift softly into slumber as we peek deeper into the humorously chaotic saga of ancient warriors. The unfolding ambush is brewing, and you are ready to witness it all unfold while wrapped in the safety of your anyway too cozy blankets. After all, conquering vast empires and completing your daily checklist are basically the same thing, right?
No? Well, let's find out more.
Chapter 15. The Raucous Ring of Doom. As the sun hung high above, burning brighter than a toddler having a tantrum in a toy store, it wasn't just any ordinary day on the outskirts of Rome. No, no, my curious dreamer. It was a day when history would roll itself into a tight little ball, toss it down a hill, and watch as chaos ensued. Picture it, a vast, chaotic encirclement of Roman soldiers trapped in a dense crush of bodies on a wide, sun-baked plain. Can you hear the collective groans? It's the kind of sound that might just remind you of your coworkers when they realize it's pencil-sharpening day again. Come, delve into this sweaty spectacle of Roman bravado, where muscle met manure and strategy met total and utter confusion. Around our hapless legionnaires, the Carthaginian cavalry, with all the enthusiasm of kittens chasing after a laser pointer, was closing the fatal ring from the rear. Yep, that's right. For every inch the Roman soldiers marched forward, they might as well have been playing hopscotch on a very, very slippery slope towards catastrophic embarrassment. Let's set the stage, shall we? It's hot. Like, why is my back sweating in places I didn't know existed? Hot. All around, the sun blazes down as if it had taken on the role of a particularly cranky deity, determined to roast every Roman in sight. The air is thick and stagnant, filled with the delightful bouquet of sweat, leather, and that ever-so-pleasant whiff of impending doom. Add a pinch of fear, just for flavor, and we've got ourselves a recipe for disaster. Can you hear the clattering of armor? It's like a bad band trying to find their rhythm at a wedding. You've got sword clashes that sound more like pots and pans in a kitchen than a mighty clash of civilizations. Daydream for a moment about a legionnaire just hoping to find a quiet corner to polish his shin guards, only to overhear his buddy shout, "Look out! The Carthaginians are coming!" And suddenly he's regretting every decision that led him to skip leg day. Meanwhile, the valiant Roman soldiers stride forth, brimming with confidence that borders on delusion. You know, that kind of confidence you sometimes feel after a particularly invigorating shower, while believing that today is definitely going to be your day. "Onward to glory!" they yell,
oblivious to the cavalry that's tightening the noose around them faster than you can say, "What was I thinking?" But wait, let's not sidestep our Carthaginian friends, shall we? These cavalrymen are jittery with anticipation, perhaps fueled by a very real craving for victory. Or maybe just breakfast? After all, who wouldn't want to charge into battle on an empty stomach? Picture this motley crew lounging in the hills, suppressed giggles bubbling to the surface as they contemplate chocolate biscuits and sandwiches. From a tactical perspective, their secret favorite way to confuse the enemy was to hurl random morsels of
bread at them. It had worked before, why not now? As our Roman soldiers trudge on with all the grace of a three-legged goat, imagine the unexpected bonus, a sneaky little shrub just waiting to trip one of them. Bam! Suddenly, it's less about valor and more about, "Are you okay, Marcus?" As the legions advance with misplaced optimism, do they stop to reassess their map? Nope. They've decided to treat the chaos like a scavenger hunt, each soldier hoping to find glory hiding behind a rock. The Carthaginian forces, now poised and ready, like kids at a birthday party waiting to dive into cake, unleash their plan with all of the finesse of a toddler tossing spaghetti against the wall. "They're coming! They're almost here!" the cry goes out, and the Romans stand tall, perhaps pondering why Roman soldiers aren't provided with backpacks for emergencies like logistical messes or confused companions. It's about to get wild in a way that has never happened before. You can almost hear the audience murmuring, "Did someone forget to bring the popcorn?" In this boiling pot of absurdity, the mist thickens around the soldiers. The fog transforms from a gentle blanket to a malevolent entity, swirling ominously like a hostile spirit eager to meddle in the affairs of mortals. Think of it as that heavy sigh you experience when your Wi-Fi drops during a crucial download. Exasperating, enveloping, and deeply inconvenient. And there they are, the Romans, soldiers clad in armor glinting under the merciless sun, approaching a destiny that teeters between tragedy and slapstick comedy. Maybe they should have left the fight for another day, having mistakenly assumed they were merely auditioning for the latest reality series, Survivor, Roman edition. Spoiler alert, all contestants are being guided into an unexpected twist ending. Hyena-like laughter bubbles up from the Carthaginian ranks, who feel as prepared as one might be if handed the mic at an open mic night. And just like that, the ambush takes shape, and it pulls tighter than your favorite pair of jeans after a dinner of excessive bread and butter. The Roman legions, now suddenly aware they've wandered into a surprise birthday bash, only this time the cake is swords, and the clowns are bloodthirsty warriors, realize they've misjudged the entire topography of this chaotic makeup party. But as the tide of history washes over this fateful encounter, remember this: sometimes you've just got to laugh through the chaos, as completely haphazard as it may seem. Just like daily life, the Romans remind us that it's not about how you start, but how you dodge the calamity around you, even if it involves unexpectedly spectacular consequences. And who knows, if you squint hard enough, you might just see the humor hidden beneath the layers of chaos, waiting to be unearthed. So drift deeper into your cozy alcove of dreams, my friend. The relentless march of history continues, and the Roman soldiers are caught in a loop of absurd destiny, tangled in misunderstanding, bravado, and some rather unfortunate choices. It's all unfolding, and rest assured, it makes for the perfect bedtime story. After all, who doesn't love a little ancient chaos before sinking down into sweet slumber? Chapter 16. The Pilgrimage of Woe. Hey guys, tonight we embark on a journey that's hotter than your favorite summer barbecue gone rogue. A spiritual adventure through the sacred halls of Eleusis during a time when sandals were the height of foot fashion and everyone seemed to be in a trance. What's more extraordinary than that, you ask? Perhaps witnessing a gathering of torchlit pilgrims wandering in search of enlightenment while half-heartedly contemplating if their last meal was actually a sacred offering or just yesterday's pizza left in the sun too long. Before we delve into the depths of this ancient drama, take a moment to engage, like, subscribe, and maybe comment on the off chance you're feeling inspired, but only if you really, really enjoyed this. Now, let's dim the lights, turn on a gentle fan, and settle in. Consider the following. If you lived in the ancient world, would your morning routine involve searching for shaving cream made from sheep fat? Or perhaps getting confused by the local chariot traffic while trying to remember where you left your toga? Did you ever think that ancient Greeks held the original version of reality TV, only with more dysentery and less dramatic music? Ah, the simple joys of dodging divine wrath while preparing your offerings. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 250 BCE, standing before the Telesterion, a colossal, dark, mysterious hall nestled in a grove where nothing is as it seems. Picture it, half-illuminated faces filled with awe and confusion, much like the expressions of friends during a surprise birthday party when they've failed to remember the host's age. Let us take in the scene. The air is rich with the scent of burnt offerings, mingling like an unwelcome guest with the fragrant incense wafting through the dimly lit hall. The flickering torches cast shadows, creating shapes that dance with more enthusiasm than a toddler on a sugar high. Whispering pilgrims, their faces covered in a mix of hopeful anticipation and mild terror, assemble in festive solitude. They've come seeking mystery, or, at the very least, a meal that doesn't taste like yesterday's leftovers. As they file into the Telesterion, a curious mixture of joy, revelation, and dread unfurls in the chamber. This was no ordinary gathering, my weary wanderer. This was about unutterable visions of death, rebirth, and perhaps a bit of miscommunication over who brought the best wine. Imagine a massive cluster of people, each clutching a wax tablet and quill as if they were about to jot down some life-altering secrets, or simply detailing how their cousin once drank too much and danced with a goat. Let's meet some of our sacred guests. Ah, there's Demetrius, the overzealous philosopher who always has an analogy or two to share, standing in the corner, holding forth about the nature of existence, arms flailing as if he's trying to direct traffic on a busy Roman road. Then there's Callista, who's forming something resembling a prayer, clearly more interested in the altar's aesthetic rather than the spiritual implications. Spoiler alert, she's about to suggest a color scheme for their next gathering. As the chanting begins, a harmonic blend of melodious voices that, if we're honest, sounds like a choir of drunken goats, everyone falls into a state of reverence. What profound truths await, you wonder, while also silently scrutinizing whether that last snack was meant to settle in your stomach or escape into the cosmos entirely. You drift deeper into the haze of faith, close your eyes, and suddenly you're witnessing visions. Flames ripple across your consciousness, the same way your phone screen flickers when you're overusing its brightness. Here's our friend Hannibal, standing on the precipice of mythic greatness, possibly questioning why he was ever considered a military genius when wrestling with elephants seemed so straightforward. But as always, the universe has a way of tossing existential dilemmas your way at the most inconvenient times. Oh dear, you think, is that a mountain of elephants charging straight at me? Or did I just eat one too many olives? The scenery transforms into a battlefield filled with laughter and chaotic glories, a kind of mythological sitcom where Hannibal, his enduring legend inspiring even modern warriors, trips over his own ambition like a kid in a candy store, causing an avalanche of logistics that perplex even the best strategists. Who knew planning a war could involve so much paperwork, you muse amidst the shadows. Meanwhile, outside the hallowed space, a spectral breeze flutters through the trees, perhaps carrying the echoes of laughter from the recently departed, extending an invitation to reconsider life's deeper mysteries, like why priests can never quite manage to remember their congregation's names during important rituals, but always know how to make an impressive exit stage left. But oh, dear listener, here's where it gets truly absurd. Just as you start to feel the warmth of insight washing over you, the stoic-faced overseer steps forward, wrapped in layers and layers of robes that seem to offer the sort of comfort only found at a family reunion where no one remembers where the bathroom is. He raises his hands, and suddenly you're enveloped in a cacophony of profound declarations mixed with reams of paperwork for the local shipping and receiving department. Whispers about sacrosanct grounds and secret sciences of alchemy resonate like an embarrassing karaoke rendition wafting through a quiet neighborhood. Perhaps you've waited too long to join this spiritual bonanza after all? And just as you're teetering on the brink of enlightenment, or a good nap, the chants swell in volume, laughing through the absurdity of choices made long ago, as flickering lemons become divine symbols of truth, for some inexplicable reason. You can hardly fathom the fusion of irreversible history and the soup-like mixing of existential questions dancing around you. Almost makes you wish you'd brought a jacket, or, better yet, a good book on the subject. Perhaps How to Not Anger Your Chariot Horse, or The Fine Art of Pilgrimage Without Losing Your Lunch. As the visions blend into intriguing riddles surrounding life, death, and rebirth, you realize, amidst the overwhelming chaos, you've indeed stumbled upon something sacred, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat, only the hat is a confused elephant. Rest easy now, and revel in the absurdity. Somewhere in the hearts of pilgrims and ancient warriors, humor lives on, even when faced with darkness. Thank you for joining this encounter amid ancient echoes woven through time and mystery, where laughter triumphs right beside the solemnity of existence. Drift deeper into this historic reflection and let the gentle tides of night embrace you, with the promise that tomorrow's absurdities await just on the horizon.
Chapter 17. The Gilded Procession of Thebes.
Hey guys, tonight we're about to set sail in something more buoyant than a rubber ducky at a kiddie pool party, witnessing the extravagant processions of Thebes in 250 BCE, where the only things more sacred than the gods were the priests. Picture this: golden ceremonial boats bobbing along, each clattering with the weight of life-size statues of deities, paraded with all the enthusiasm of that one uncle at weddings who thinks he's the life of the party. But first, let's engage. Like, subscribe, and possibly comment, only if you're feeling especially generous tonight, of course. No pressure, really. Though I can say with confidence that nothing helps lull you to sleep quite like knowing you've contributed to the vibrant world of faceless YouTube oddities. Now, let's dim the lights, perhaps turn on a soft fan to mimic the gentle winds of history, and wriggle into a comfortable position, kind of like trying to find a cozy spot on a pile of hay. Imagine being an ancient Egyptian in the bustling streets of Thebes, surrounded by color and noise. Would you be the one trying to navigate the crowd, only to trip over a ceremonial sandal? Or perhaps you'd be the one waving your arms around, desperately trying to keep an oversized statue of a god from toppling onto a hapless bystander. Congratulations! You've just woken up in Thebes during the rituals dedicated to the gods, where your biggest concern is not the latest meme, but whether you've prepped your finest toga to impress the high priests. The air is electrified with excitement, the type that makes you feel like the world is on the cusp of a major Netflix series premiere. You're enveloped in the sights and sounds of a vibrant tapestry, colors more vivid than a retro 90s fashion show, and aromas so enticing they could make even a stoic statue turn its head. Let's take a stroll through the streets. The processional route is alive with noise. Priests in crisp linen garments waft by, adjusting their gold-tasseled headpieces like they're on a catwalk, competing only with the ornate statues riding aloft on gilded boats. It's all very glorious, until you realize that the outfit you chose is the result of a desperate scraping of garments from last year's festival. Oops, fashion faux pas. As you gaze upon the grand procession, the rhythmic chants of the priests sound like a choir of ancient goats attempting to harmonize. Seriously, if you squint, it almost resembles a peculiar flash mob where everyone is way too invested, but no one seems to remember the dance steps. Sentences of praise rise and fall, punctuated by the occasional sneeze from a priest who just stepped too close to a pile of fragrant incense. When you think about it, attention to your surroundings might just save your toga from the wrath of an altar sneeze. Look up. There's the boat of Amun, shimmering in the sunlight and bobbing like it's ready for a delightful game of water polo. You can practically hear the whispered discussions about who gets to sit closest to the idol this year. It's like the ancient world's equivalent of determining seating arrangements at a holiday family dinner. Someone is definitely going to list all the reasons why they absolutely deserve the prime spot, complete with gesture flailing and grand declarations about divine favor. As you continue to wander, the excitement builds. The reverence is palpable, with the sort of intensity usually reserved for sniffing a freshly opened canister of chocolate chip cookies. Just as a priest starts giving a spiel about the time of creation and the cosmic scales of fate, let your mind drift into the sheer absurdity of it all. Watching priests nearly trip over sandaled feet while holding life-size statues of deities should absolutely be a spectator sport. Suddenly, let's talk about the ceremonial benches. If you ever thought that a seat at a game was intense, try finding comfort on a wooden bench strategically placed at a sun-drenched altar. Guess what? No cushions, just hardwood and the occasional splinter to remind you of your poor life choices. Prayers have been offered, and maybe even a mild curse or two against the person who forgot the cushion-making supplies. And as the processional boats make their grand turn to reveal the grand temple, you can almost picture chaos. Between the wafting incense and the almost too much enthusiasm to see the gods, someone inevitably loses control of a statue. You imagine the harmless commotion of priests scrambling. "Quick! Somebody catch Khonsu before he takes a plunge!" It's an image that brings a snicker as you drift through the holiday atmosphere of Thebes. The sheer joy is contagious. A sense of community fills the air, even among people who secretly wish they were home sipping super dry wine instead. You chuckle softly, appreciating the absurd intricacies of human nature across the ages. Can we get a snack soon, you wonder? Because even in the shadow of divine statues, food is sometimes the center of the universe, or at least a very convincing distraction. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon, and the gilded boats glimmer like the overly zealous decorations of an over-caffeinated holiday season, you feel a tranquility creeping in. Life may not always be as simple or as absurd as the festivals of Thebes, but within this playful chaos, wisdom swirls, reminding you that laughter and reverence can coexist beautifully. Rest easy now, dear traveler, drifting into a land of dreams woven with golden threads of absurdity and joy. The echoes of ancient laughter will follow as you float further into the evening, for the secrets of the gods and the occasional catastrophic statue await just beyond the horizon. What an adventure indeed. Chapter 18. The Bizarre Reign of the Lord of Misrule. Hey guys, tonight we're about to plunge into something more bewildering than a cat trying to swim. Welcome to the grand spectacle of ancient Rome, where the social order flips more frequently than a pancake on a hot griddle. Picture this: a Roman slave crowned as the Lord of Misrule, instructing his master, who, for reasons beyond logic, is draped in an outlandishly colorful tunic and beaming like he just won a toga contest. Now I know what you're probably thinking. What kind of game is this? Is it a gladiatorial match or a fashion runway showdown? Still not sure if the prize for this absurd hierarchy reversal is ancient currency or simply bragging rights at the next Saturnalia party. But hey, if it tickles your fancy and your sense of humor, who am I to judge? Just remember to like, subscribe, and consider commenting if you enjoy our delightful jaunt into ancient mischief. So, Grab your cozy blanket, fluff that pillow, and maybe kick on a fan to mimic the gentle winds that sweep through these lively streets. Breathe in deeply. Can you smell that? It's the scent of roasted figs mingling with the aroma of incense, plus that inexplicable hint of, oh dear, someone really shouldn't have worn a tunic that short. Now, you might be wondering, what's it like being a slave in Rome during the late Republic? Do you get a snack break? What happens when your master starts dancing awkwardly at a feast? And is there actually a sketchy board where you rank in the grand scheme of servants? Congratulations! You've just woken up in the most wonderfully chaotic season of life, 250 BCE, amidst the revelries of misrule, where one simple proclamation from your newly crowned Lord of Misrule could lead to anything from a slapstick comedy routine to a gladiatorial-style pie-eating contest. Let's set the scene. You find yourself in the lavishly bustling streets of Rome. It's a tapestry of random acts of kindness, deliberate absurdity, and a lot of people sporting questionable fashion choices. The Roman market is alive with the sounds of merchants shouting about the latest exotic produce while trying to assure you that, yes, you do need a basket full of pomegranates, whether you like them or not. But tonight? Tonight is something different. As the appointed Lord of Misrule waves an elaborately carved stick, which honestly looks like something out of a children's toy store, your master, clad in vibrant, pigmented fabrics, spins around like he's auditioning for a particularly flamboyant musical. Oh dear, you think, wasn't the recommended attire for arriving guests a bit more subdued? But hey, this is ancient Rome. Every day is like a fashion episode of What Not to Wear, Bronze Edition. With a flourish, the Lord of Misrule, your former co-worker, now adorned with a laurel wreath, which he may or may not have found in a nearby shrub, declares, tonight's menu shall include only the finest foods, served on the comically large platter of doom. And immediately you can see the people around the banquet table, nobles and plebeians alike, digesting the absurdity of this request more slowly than the roast lamb sliding down the tablecloth. Bring forth the delightful pumpkin soup, thickened with the funny stories of yesteryear, he commands. You can practically hear the thought bubble above your master's head. Did he just say pumpkin soup? Who even eats that? The fact that this is a festive occasion where you're expected to laugh along only adds to the entertainment value. As you watch your master rush off to fulfill these absurd orders, something wonderful happens. He trips over the leg of a very squished stool, tumbling to the ground with all the grace of a three-legged mule. It takes everything in you not to burst into laughter, which, let's be honest, is the only acceptable response in a night where societal norms seem to have taken a permanent vacation. Your master retrieves himself and grins sheepishly, brushing imaginary dirt off his tunic as though he hadn't just made a glorious spectacle of himself. Allow me to stand in service to my master, dear Lord of Misrule, he declares, only slightly out of breath. The Lord simply nods, clearly ecstatic about the chaos he has unleashed. Next, he continues, everyone must dance. Yes, you heard right. A swirling, twirling, spectacular display of spontaneity. And what happens next? The awkward, soft shuffling would shock modern dance instructors.
You can't help but chuckle at the sight of a group of grim-faced senators coordinating their movements like a herd of confused elephants, all while trying not to drop their goblets or validate your lord's theatrical outburst. It's a scene so absurd it could make even Dionysus, the god of merriment, roll his eyes. The air fills with laughter, camaraderie, and just a wee bit of chaos as people cheer each other on. "You call that dancing? I've seen toddlers wobble better," one fellow shouts, while a particularly brave soldier attempts a pirouette that almost sends a nearby table of food tumbling to the ground. By the end of the night, the true absurdity settles like fine dust over the participants. Your former coworker, the very embodiment of what happens when you give the wrong person a crown, grins with unabashed joy. The laughter was a melody almost too sweet to bear, echoing through those crimson-draped halls, blending with the sense of wine and wild celebration. With a sigh that could bring peace to the most chaotic of gatherings, you surrender to the delightful absurdity of human existence in all its comical glory. After this strange and hilarious episode of role reversals, you're reminded that, even in the midst of chaos, the joys of fellowship and the sheer unpredictability of life always bring us together. Rest easy now, dear wanderer, as the
Echoes of laughter slip into the soothing silence of the night. You carry with you the spirit of mischief and laughter, bridging the realms of humanity across time. What a wild spectacle it is, reveling in the joyous absurdity of our existence.
Chapter 19. Leap of Faith in the Fiery Abyss. Hey guys, tonight we embark on an odyssey more flamboyant than a peacock at a cat convention. Welcome to the eve of Nowruz, the Persian New Year. Imagine, if you will, the scent of zesty saffron, the crackle of bonfires that could warm a woolly mammoth, and the delightful irrationality of people leaping over all of it, shouting at the flames like they're having an argument with a particularly sassy spirit. So why leap over a bonfire, you ask? It's not just a new fitness trend gone wildly awry. It's all about purification, like when you accidentally wear white to a spaghetti party. Everyone's craving a fresh start, spiritual balance, new beginnings, and maybe a little less drama in their lives. But before we dive in, let's take a moment. If you're enjoying our nighttime jaunt through history, or if you just want to know how crazy this can get, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. But only if you actually enjoy this cringe-worthy misadventure of ancient shenanigans. Now, let's set the mood. Dim the lights like you're trying to hide from an X in a crowded restaurant. Kick on a fan to recreate that gentle breeze rustling through the olive trees. Much better than waking up to static from your alarm clock. Snuggle deep into your blankets. Can you smell the rich earthiness of roasted nuts mixed with the slight hint of, oh no, did someone really just leap over the fire? But what's life like for the Persians on the eve of Nowruz? Do you possess the agility of a gazelle, knowing full well you might end up face first in the nearest shrub? Or perhaps you get overly excited and shout, "Catch me, fire," only to realize, oops, no one's catching you. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 250 BCE, where societies are bustling, bonfires are roaring, and everyone seems to have a bit too much enthusiasm for simple gymnastics. Talk about living on the edge. Let's set the stage for the grand leap. Imagine you're in the heart of Persia, enveloped in the undeniable excitement of the new year. The air is thick with the scent of juniper and spices, swirling like a fragrant tornado, tickling your nostrils while tantalizing your taste buds. All around you, folks are garbed in vibrant silk, patterns swirling like a confetti explosion at a birthday party, and everyone is happiness personified, except that one guy who just tripped over his own sandals. The soundscape? Fabulous, really. Laughter bubbles like a once innocent babbling brook, mixed with the occasional loud crackle of flames as folks prepare to do utterly illogical things. "Shall we leap through that fire?" someone chirps, as if it's just an ordinary Tuesday. You'd think they're suggesting a casual stroll, but nay, this is a leap into the fiery depths of purification. Sign me up for that parade of oddities. You catch snippets of conversation, snippets of sheer absurdity, like one enthusiastic woman proclaiming, "It's a leap of faith, darling. If I survive this leap, my bad back might just fix itself." It's like yelling out, "If I survive this hurdle, I'll definitely run in the next marathon." Only this marathon has hot coals instead of running shoes. So what's the plan? Everyone gathers around the bonfire like moths drawn to an unfortunate fate, voices rising in a cacophony of cheers, all united by a common sense of impending lunacy. The flames dance and flicker under the watchful eyes of the stars, providing a theatrical backdrop for what can only be described as a communal act of delightful madness. You see a wise elder, the local sage, standing off to the side, presumably challenging the cosmos with his weathered gaze. "Yes, yes, jump, and then you shall be reborn," he shouts, his beard almost catching fire with every emphatic gesture. You chuckle, shaking your head, because isn't that just like ancient wisdom to be mixed with questionable risk assessments? Now, the first brave soul steps up, their heart pounding harder than a Roman chariot race. They take a deep breath, a moment of solemnity before the delightful insanity. 3, 2, 1, and they leap, legs flailing in a manner reminiscent of an octopus trying to ride a bicycle as they hurtle over the fire. And in that split second, you can't help but wonder, if they miscalculate, does the fire become a new way to start over, like an accidental rebranding as Charcoal Keith? Luckily, they land safely, arms flailing in triumph, drawing applause from the crowd louder than a toddler at a birthday party. With each successfully completed leap, you revel in the spectacle, chuckling to yourself, thinking how this bonfire-lit affair resembles modern-day charades. You call that a jump? My grandmother took on 2 goats and a cart, and she still made it to the bazaar on time. It's a swirling sea of chaos and jubilation, and you're right in the thick of it. As the night progresses, people leap and burp like they consumed one too many bowls of spicy lentil stew, the air thick with joy and a hint of burnt hair. Every time someone clears the bonfire with impressive flair, it feels like a mini celebration for everyone involved. After all, If leaping through flames doesn't scream excitement, what does? And before you know it, the night slips deeper into laughter and camaraderie, with each jump seen not just as a feat of courage, but as a precursor to the hope, health, and happiness of the new year. Given that it's tradition, you can't ignore the satisfaction it brings, a symbol of shaking off the old and welcoming the new. Rest easy now, dear wanderer, as you let these warm memories wash over you, mixing the flames of festive absurdity with the love of community. The bonfire may flicker into the night, but the spirit of connection and joy clings to the air like the sweet scent of roasted nuts. What a spirited way to embrace life on the very edge of immolation. Chapter 20. The Dramatic Masks of Destiny. Hey guys, tonight we find ourselves in a place more dramatic than a soap opera marathon with a side of Greek tragedy. Welcome to the Theater of Dionysus, where the air is thick with the scent of olive oil, and the only thing more exaggerated than the actors' performances is the audience's reactions. Imagine this, a crowd gathered in an amphitheater, wearing masks so elaborate they'd make a peacock green with envy. You might even find a smile on the face of a tragic hero contemplating their impending doom. Now, you may be wondering, what's the deal with these masks? Are they trying to hide something, or just competing for best in show? Well, these masks aren't just for crossing an emotional bridge. They serve a dual purpose. Why limit your expression to a frown when you can transform into a sad-faced monster in one swift flick? Bonus points if you end up looking like your neighbor after a bad hair day. Speaking of neighbors, how do you feel about public displays of emotional turbulence? Ever find yourself sweating bullets during a dramatic moment in a movie, wondering if your popcorn could save the day? Well, tonight, you're in for a treat. Are you ready to witness the melodrama of fate, revenge, and the occasional betrayal, as if binging on a season finale? Before we dive headfirst into the swirling vortex of tragic storytelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Only if you're thrilled about joining this absurd, time-traveling exercise through history, of course. Now, let's set the ambiance. Dim the lights like you're about to watch your life flash before your eyes. Crank up a fan to recreate that authentic Mediterranean breeze, perfect for sticking to your clothes like the remnants of last week's dinner. Wrap up snug in your blankets, as though preparing to brace yourself against the tempest of emotional upheaval unfolding before you. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 250 BCE, where Athenians are gathered in the Theater of Dionysus, some more eager for the latest gossip than for the performances. Picture it. Rows of citizens, bathed in sunlight, fanning themselves with leaves while pretending they're not secretly rooting for the doom of the protagonist. Curious cats, aren't they? But really, what's it like in this hallowed space where the great playwrights of history are about to unleash thrilling tales of human tragedy? Do you feel that? It's the tension in the air, like that moment before you open a mystery-flavored jelly bean. Is it coconut, or worse, buttered popcorn? The faint sound of a lyre fills the air, while enthusiastic whispers about the latest tragedies rip through the crowd. After all, what's more fun than watching someone else's existential crisis while sipping on a little wine? As you take in the scene, Your seat cushions are likely just as lumpy as the cushions in your living room, except here they are.
Probably made from whatever scrap materials hastily cobbled together, sprinkled with the residue of yesterday's roasted chestnuts. The audience leans forward, masks in place, a whirlwind of exaggerated expressions. One is poised with wide eyes that practically scream, "I am the embodiment of tragic fate," while another's sneer reads more like, "Someone spilled grape juice on my tunic." The actors are garbed in clothing that resembles the lost trash of a festival, layered and flowing, because why not flaunt how long it takes to metamorphose from human to character? As the performance begins, the soft sound of dress rustling fills your ears. The chorus bursts into song, belting tales of heartache and despair, with all the subtlety of a drunken soul in a tavern. You might even feel inclined to join in, but a second thought stops you. It's the kind of singing that could scare animals and make passers-by ponder their life choices. "Behold our ancient heroes," the lead thespian cries. "Here stands Oedipus, the man doomed by fate, like a clumsy waiter at a high-stakes dinner party." The audience gasps and nods knowingly, as if they themselves have tangled with destiny more than once, sans tragedy, of course. You can almost hear the background murmurs. Did he really just say that? As the tragedies unfold, you can't help but feel a wave of catharsis wash over you. You're not just watching a story, dear friend. You're part of an emotional roller coaster that reminds you how badly a bad hair day really is in light of fatal flaws and familial betrayals. Ah, the joy of collective suffering. It's almost as if you're attempting to endure a particularly nasty episode of reality TV, but with a much stronger moral compass. The audience bobs and sways with the emotions on stage, a beautifully choreographed disaster of empathy, like trying to dance the Macarena while simultaneously brushing your teeth. It's just that chaotic. At the climax, the hero agonizes over their choices, and the crowd roars with laughter and tears. From your seat, you're almost tempted to yell out, "Really, Oedipus? You didn't see that one coming?" And as the plot thickens, the swirling hopelessness of their misfortune brings unexpected comfort. It's like realizing that your grass could grow an extra inch right before a drought, but at least you have all this delightful misery to bond with everyone around you. So here you are in the theater of Dionysus, a realm of laughter and tears. The masks you wear not only speak to ancient tales of tragedy, but also reflect reflections of us all. The performance may be heavy, but that's what makes sharing it with others so beautifully absurd. Rest easy now, dear wanderer. Absorb the pulsing energy of this theatrical escapade, where catharsis runs rampant and laughter dances in the heart of despair. Let the echoes of Athenian tragedy cradle you into the twilight as you process the evening's journey through the tangled web of human experience. Chapter 21. The Kaleidoscope of Chaos. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something as vibrant as a peacock in a paint factory, a festival that feels like a vigorous pillow fight with history itself. Welcome to the streets of Rome, circa 250 BCE, where citizens are celebrating like it's the Olympics,
a mix between joyous revelry and a bit too much grape juice. Picture this, folks tossing colorful gulal powder like it's confetti, all while dancing around with the room temperature enthusiasm of a caffeinated squirrel. Now, before we get lost in the kaleidoscope of chaos, let's ponder some serious questions. Ever wanted to throw a spontaneous color party, but worried about getting egg on your face? Or, I don't know, egg on your toga instead? What's the appeal of covering yourself in vibrant powders when you could just hit the local spa for a mud mask? Or maybe you've wondered why the Romans weren't concerned about getting these colors all over their fine garments. Were they harboring a secret fabric cleaning spell we don't know about? As those perplexing thoughts swirl in your mind, let's take a deep breath and remind ourselves what life might have been like amongst the wild whirlwinds of the late Roman Republic. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 250 BCE and strolled right into a festival that feels as timeless as your last regrettable haircut. The air is thick with the heady scents of roasted vegetables and spices, mingled with a hint of something vaguely reminiscent of 1,000 unwashed tunics. As you look around, the whole scene seems to bubble like a cauldron of enthusiasm. And really, is there anything more satisfying than watching society turn into one gloriously chaotic hamster wheel of merriment? In this vibrant moment, social barriers magically fade away, just like your will to stick to a diet when there are free donuts around. You're surrounded by an explosion of colors, reds, greens, and blues in the air, blending together like a mad artist went rogue with a paint palette. A man nearby throws a handful of the red gulal, hitting another fellow who lets out a shriek akin to finding out your favorite show just got canceled. What a delicate symphony of tragedy and joy. Let's not forget the music. It thumps through the streets with all the grace and subtlety of a drunken centurion trying to lead the chicken dance. Instruments weave in and out, and while there might not be any formal choreography, that doesn't stop the locals from flinging their bodies about in what can only be described as a delightful celebration of chaotic interpretive dance. Is that a finger-wagging shimmy or a desperate attempt to shake off that uncomfortable tunic? The world may never know. And the chatter. Imagine conversations filled with the exuberance only ancient Romans could muster. Did you hear about Marcus? He tried to impress a lady by cartwheeling and landed face first in the olive vat. What a charmer! Between laughter and jolting surprise at practical jokes, it's as if every corner brings a new opportunity for social faux pas, each more entertaining than the last. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When those vibrant colors hit the air, they mingle with your sinus passages in a way that is both intoxicating and slightly concerning. You might momentarily wonder if you should be concerned about your respiratory health. But hey, what's a little powdered pigment in the grand scheme of ancient Roman revelry? Just remember, if someone claims it's just a temporary respiratory enhancement, roll your eyes and make your best escape. But let's also ponder logistics. Where do they store all that colorful powder? Is there a secret guild of powder hoarders? Do they band together
trading tips like how to mix the best color for your social standings, or gulal, an ancient recipe for deflecting small talk. And while they're at it, how many public arguments go down when dog owners insist their pets survived being hit with a burst of vibrant colors? It's like a soiree turned debate over who has the most aesthetically pleasing sheep. Truly an ancient pastime of intrigue. As the sun begins to set, painting the landscape in warm hues that would make a Baroque artist weep, laughter spills into the cracks of the cobblestones, a glorious soundtrack to this gathering. Picture it now. While some may walk around looking like they just stepped out of an avant-garde art exhibition, others gladly embrace their new, festive appearance with the grace of a peacock in full plume. And let's face it, those runaway piglets cavorting in the streets only add another layer of absurd delight. Here you are, surrounded by the lives of citizens who, for a brief flicker in time, have cast aside their ranks and role as staunch patricians or lower-class plebeians. Instead, they twirl and swirl through this blizzard of colors, sharing laughter and stories adorned with gulal like a badge of honor. It's as if for one dazzling day, the entirety of Rome collectively decided to ignore the mundane, opting instead for the gloriously ridiculous. And who could blame them? So, as the vibrant festivities unfold, and you find yourself caught in this living kaleidoscope, take a moment to savor the sheer absurdity of it all. Because if history teaches us anything, it's that amidst the chaos of human existence, there's always room for laughter, celebration, and a sprinkle, or a handful, of colorful camaraderie. Wrap yourself in that joy, embrace the exuberance, and drift gently into a night filled with dreams painted in shades of red, green, and blue. Sweet slumber, my colorful friends.
Chapter 22. The Silken Secrets of the Vestal Virgins. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something smoother than a greased pig in a county fair, a clandestine soiree of ancient Roman allure. Picture this, the sacred household of a high-ranking magistrate where the air is thick with the sweet scent of mystery, and perhaps a hint of something that's supposed to resemble milk, but might just be an extravagant vintage wine that could knock you off your toga. Before we get too comfortable, let's ponder some intriguing questions. Ever tried hosting a dinner party where everyone insists on bringing their own snacks, like a potluck, but with far more toga-related wardrobe malfunctions? What about the awkwardness of running into someone when you're all trying to adhere to the strictest social norms outside the door, while having no idea what's being sipped on inside? Or perhaps you found yourself wondering if anyone ever mistakenly confused the sacred boundary of silence for an invitation to gossip, because nothing says sacred right quite like a little intrigue. Am I right? Now, take a moment to dim the lights. Turn on a fan to create an ambiance reminiscent of a gentle Roman breeze, and settle in. Congratulations. You've just woken up just a stone's throw away from that high magistrate's abode in circa 250 BCE, where the secrets of the Vestal Virgins are brimming like a hidden wine cellar waiting to be unleashed. In this lavish abode, the Vestal Virgins are poised, each adorned in their flowing dresses, which whisper tales of both piety and fabulous fabric choices. The air is filled with tension, and you can almost taste the anticipation, the kind that teeters on the edge of reverence and gossip like a nervous goose on a tightrope. They gather, protected from the male gaze like rare chocolates in a locked cabinet, because, apparently, the male gaze has been deemed far more dangerous than a lion with tooth decay. Let's be honest here. Wine disguised as milk? Does anyone else find that as creatively absurd as the last time you tried to prank someone at a party with a fake spider? The Vestals take their ritual seriously, but apparently draw the line at being sober about it. The wine flows like rumors about who will be the next great gladiator, and each sip turns their whispers into ripples of laughter as they carefully navigate the thin veil of secrecy required for their sacred duties. Imagine, if you will, the scene. The flickering of oil lamps casts playful shadows across the elaborately painted walls as you stand awkwardly at the threshold, contemplating whether to join in this delightful revelry or to just quietly critique the drapery choices. You hear snippets of conversation carefully weaving in and out, just as shadows slink behind ornate statues. Did you see how Flavia wore that floral crown last week? The audacity. What did she think this was? A toga party? Silence is the real star of the evening,
enforced like a curfew on a school night. It's an absurd juxtaposition of horror and humor. These women, entrusted with the sacred flame of Vesta, yet keenly aware that one slip into gossip could invoke an eyebrow raise from the divine. You might even feel a prickling urge to lean in a tad closer to catch the latest tidbit, even as a shiver runs down your spine like a cold rush of reality. These Vestal virgins can gossip as well as they guard their flame. As you further immerse yourself in your new surroundings, the very walls seem to pulse with unspoken secrets and occasional snickers. Here's where ancient Roman mystery intertwines with the very human joy of hearty laughter. It's a delicate dance of the divine and the ridiculous. The Vestals, treated like celebrities but expected to act with all the charm of a well-trained squirrel, are navigating a night filled with sacred duties and a boatload of wine. Picture a team-building exercise, but way more serious and with fewer trust falls. The ritual unfolds not just as a ceremony, but as a living tableau of what it means to be a woman with power, yet bound by tradition. A tightrope walk on the edge of enjoying raunchy jokes with your friends, while ensuring that the high priestess's gaze does not wander in your direction. Each time they raise a glass, the thrill of rebellion tinges their laughter. Is this truly blessed wine, or just a ruse to keep us on our toes? You can practically hear the sound of minor chaos humming beneath each ritualistic gesture, the siren song of forbidden fun, guiding them all deeper into secret ceremonies. As you lean in, clutching your invisible goblet, the world beyond falls away, and suddenly you're woven into this ancient web of hilarity and devotion, rolling your eyes as they strategize how to slip a bit of spiced wine into their solemn ceremony as if they were passing communion wafers. There's an irony, of course. The very act of engaging in sacred silence is punctuated by muffled giggles and clandestine sips. With each flash of a playful smile, one can't help but think, if they could only see the delightful absurdity of this life, wouldn't it reinvent the very concept of fidelity among priests and divine guardianship? And so it goes. Another night floats gently along the echoes of laughter, whispers of gossip, and the bubbling bravado that tends to crop up
when well-guarded secrets come frothing to the surface like poorly kept wine. With each clandestine giggle, it's clear, as timeless as the moon's glow upon the cobblestones, there's always room for absurdity, whether in the Senate or within the sacred sanctuary cloaked in intrigue. So raise a glass, dear listener, and immerse yourself in the chaotic charm of ancient Rome, where the spirit of fun sparkles more than the finest sparkling mead in the land.
Chapter 23. The Lamentable Lamentations of Eternal Rest. Hey guys, tonight we're tiptoeing through an ancient Egyptian tomb, where the ambiance is about as serene as a cat being bathed, if that cat were also a revered mummy preparing for an afterlife soiree. Imagine a place thick with the scent of myrrh and the awkwardness of priests trying not to trip over their own robes while performing the sacred alchemical operation of mummification. It's like trying to assemble IKEA furniture blindfolded, but you can hear the whispers of gods insisting you take it seriously. But hold on a moment. Before we unravel the shrouded hilarity of eternity and the dark oath of Hannibal, let's take a second to ponder some daunting questions. Ever tried to get good help when you just needed someone to wrap you up like a burrito? Or maybe you found yourself wondering if your last meal was so good that you'd consider it foraging for the afterlife. What about the incessant struggle of flat-pack furniture when your final resting place is a tomb? If only they had screw-top sarcophagi. So grab your dimmer switch, turn it down to that cozy ambiance of, I just woke up, but I need another hour, and prepare for a journey. Congratulations, you've just woken up in 250 BCE, and trust me, eternal slumber comes with significantly fewer Netflix choices than you might expect. As you blink away the dreamy haze, feel the cool, slightly musty air of the chamber wrap around you like an unwelcome, warm hug. The flickering oil lamps cast a golden glow over the bejeweled sarcophagi, each more extravagant than your last vacation, that one where you swore you'd never eat that much tzatziki sauce again. Meanwhile, the priests are engaged in the time-honored activity of wrapping corpses with all the enthusiasm of a kid unwrapping a ridiculously difficult birthday gift. So, let's talk about this mummification process. Imagine every priest as a sort of caffeinated burrito maker, sans the guacamole, of course. The first step is to remove the internal organs, a task met with as much enthusiasm as removing a stubborn sock from under the couch. Kidneys, heart, lungs. Which one goes first? Wait, did we lasagna the wrong way again? The organs get placed in canopic jars decorated like ancient cheerleaders, ready to root for the mummies, but showcasing quite possibly the worst mascot designs known to humanity. The priests don't mind this, of course, because they view it as their version of abdominal workouts. While everyone else is busy sweating in the fields, these guys are doing more scraping, pulling, and probably shouting at each other than you'd find during a family game of Monopoly gone wrong. Picture them gingerly removing organs with the care of someone handling a long-lost family heirloom, while simultaneously telling each other, "You've got this. It's just a liver, not a life crisis." Now, let's not forget the fun part, the embalming fluid. Imagine a concoction of myrrh, cedar oil, and natron, the kind of magical potion that makes you question why it wasn't sold in hipster apothecaries. Oh, you're looking for something to make your skin glow. Try this natron, guaranteed to keep you feeling fresh for at least 3,000 years. As you look around the chamber, take in the bandages. They twirl into intricate patterns like grandma's knitting hobby gone absolutely bonkers. What these priests didn't realize is that their end result looked less like a revered body preparing for the afterlife, and more like a toddler's art project involving way too much tape. But let's face it, ever tried to wrap a present with enthusiasm, only to have it end up looking like a crumpled mess? Now translate that energy to the ancient priests, who must have been competing for the title of most creative way to disrupt the afterlife. They delicately apply resin, thinking they've concocted the world's best craft idea. I'm mummifying this poor sap, and in 10,000 years, it'll still smell like summer camp. It's like they were prepping to unveil the mummified masterclass, how to make spirits laugh eternally. The rituals go on. Chants are shouted like bad opening acts, and you'd think the priests had just been informed their favorite soap opera was getting canceled. Slowly, the body, once a living, breathing entity, is now a veiled figure destined for a cozy, eternal box, with enough amulets to make a thrift shop owner weep tears of joy. Oh, and let's not forget the funeral rites themselves. Fancy ceremonies. If modern funerals felt a tad excessive, you've never seen a team of priests trying to outdo each other in a dramatic farewell. Each stack of incense wafts through the air, thick enough to make anyone who had moderately sensitive sinuses reconsider their life decisions. Just one more layer, and we'll call it good. It's not like we can have a do-over. Finally, as they seal the tomb, there's a palpable mix of pride and awkwardness, akin to how you might feel when trying to muster enough enthusiasm to clean your closet as if you were preparing for an international episode of What Not to Wear. The completion elicits whispers of satisfaction from the priests, each exalted as if they've conquered Everest, only doing so with the remnants of what used to be alive. And there you are, nestled into this tale of ancient absurdity, the distinct realization settling in. Mummification, while a sacred affair, feels more like a bizarre mix of pride and perpetual jokes about grave decor than anything else. As the priests step back to survey their handiwork, just remember, when life gives you mummies, wrap them up and let the cosmic chuckles roll on.
Chapter 24, Jabir's Lab, where science meets silliness. Hey guys, tonight we're wandering into a space that's so full of curiosity and quirkiness, it makes a cat meme feel like a history lecture. Welcome to 8th century Baghdad, where alchemy meets absurdity. And let me tell you, no one quite knew if they were trying to turn lead into gold or simply desperate for a good cup of coffee. Imagine a laboratory packed to the brim with bubbling alembics and retorts, each piece of equipment looking like it just finished a late-night rave, covered in flecks of dubious concoctions, and sported just as many secrets as a magician with a disappearing rabbit. But first, let's ruminate on some rather curious questions. Have you ever tried mixing drinks for your friends at a party, only to create a concoction that not only looks questionable, but tastes like bad decisions?
Or what about that moment when you open a kitchen cabinet and every spice jar falls out like they're auditioning for a comedy show? Is it paprika or turmeric? Who knows? Finally, isn't brewing up something new in the kitchen just a slightly less dangerous incarnation of the alchemical experiments happening right here in Jabir's lab? Spoiler alert, they both can lead to divine creations or cosmic disasters. So, settle in, dim your lights, and let your imagination dance amidst the fragrant scents of juniper and the unmistakable undercurrent of panic that envelops every alchemist as they try to figure out if the bubbling potion is a form of potent medicine or just yesterday's leftover pickles gone rogue. Congratulations! You've just woken up in 8th century Baghdad, a time when the quest for knowledge was only eclipsed by the quest for the world's most fashionable robe. As you look around, the scene unfolds like a bizarre dream. Because honestly, how often do you find yourself in a place where you can hear the melodious whispers of scholarly debates mixed with the occasional, "Oops, that was way too much sulfur"? The lab itself is a delightful mess of glassware, each vessel more precariously balanced than your last attempt at adulting. Beaker after beaker, they hold potions that shimmer like disco lights at a party gone horribly wrong. You can almost smell history here, the sweet and sour tang of aged spices laced with an undercurrent of burnt goat hair, as some wannabe alchemist just realized that maybe mixing fire with organic materials isn't the best idea. It's a little like trying to multitask. How much laundry can one person do before the whole room becomes a decorative shrine to chaos? Jabir, our intrepid alchemical wizard, imagine a mix between your quirky science teacher and your most eccentric aunt who insists she's a kitchen witch, is busy refining the processes of distillation and crystallization. He talks about it with the enthusiasm of a child explaining their new pet turtle, only to realize halfway that, between boiling liquids and explosive reactions, someone may suffer a splashed eyebrow in the meantime. Just a little more heat, and this will become gold. Or, wait, what color is that supposed to be? Picture this. Fans whirring softly to one side, while Jabir excitedly mixes a handful of strange powders, as if he's preparing for a family reunion potluck. If I add this pinch of something somehow mysterious, will I get gold, or will I just clog the plumbing? Each step in the alchemical process becomes an episode of their very own cooking show. Will the gold or the mysterious blob win, complete with dramatic gasps as experiments turn a shade of green that suggests complete catastrophe? Let's also not ignore the music of the lab, gurgles, pops, and the occasional ominous hiss, sounding less like the symphony of scientific discovery and more like an uncoordinated karaoke night. Every alchemist is a star, belting out songs that spill out of their mouths like over-enthusiastic coffee filters, filling the air with a melody that might just scare away the neighborhood cats more than attract them. Every now and then, Jabir will look up and share a deep thought, equally concerning and charming. What if, instead of gold, we just managed to create really shiny rocks, he muses, his brow furrowed like someone trying to understand the stock market. I mean, who wouldn't want a shiny rock? Or two? At this point, you're looking around the room because you suspect the gold might be hidden under mountains of forgotten meals. And as you sit back and revel in this whimsical chaos, you can't help but chuckle at the sheer absurdity. This is a world where pressing questions remain unanswered. Why does my distillation equipment look like a rejected alien spacecraft? Or, how do we know that Mercury isn't just a bad breakup waiting to happen? Jabir's burning ambition and awkward charm adds layers to the already befuddling endeavor that is alchemy. And really, who doesn't want to be a part of a community striving for enlightenment, while also questioning why last week's leftovers are still taking up space? But as evening shadows lengthen, the atmosphere takes on an enticing calm, the vibrant chaos of the lab weaving itself into a soothing ambiance. The bubbling sounds softening like whispers, the beakers glisten, and as you begin to drift deeper into this magical world, it brings to mind one profound wisdom. Sometimes the path to discovery is paved with glorious blunders, some laughter, and a touch of risky experiments that may or may not lead to life-changing potions, or a rather flamboyant future museum exhibit about the awkward origins of alchemy.
Chapter 25. The Alchemical Garden of Oddities. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into a realm where the mysteries of the cosmos blend with the wackiest gardening fails you could possibly imagine. Welcome to around 250 BCE, a time when people believed that by combining a little bit of wax, a hint of rose petals, and maybe a few sprinkles of something that sounds suspiciously like a bad cologne, they could unlock the secrets of life itself. You thought your attempts at growing tomatoes were ambitious? Think again. Picture this: ancient Romans, with more confidence than common sense, eagerly collecting herbs and mixing potions in hopes of sprouting a new world from the soil. Except, spoiler alert, half of them end up growing interesting results that would make a modern gardener weep. Ever wondered what it would be like if you accidentally grew a cactus instead of basil, and it was too stubborn or proud to go away? Imagine the drama. But before we step into the alchemical garden, let me ask you this. Have you ever tried to follow a Pinterest recipe only to end up with something resembling a science experiment that your cat would not only disregard but also judge? Or have you had that moment when you stand in front of your fridge debating whether that mysterious jar of green stuff is an exotic condiment or just last year's New Year's resolution gone bad? Now, settle in, dim the lights, and get comfortable, because we're heading to a place where growing herbs and conducting experiments require not only courage, but also a touch of insanity. Pretty much like every late-night cooking endeavor we've all had at some point. Congratulations! You've just woken up in the Roman Republic, surrounded by a peculiar blend of an alchemical garden and the delightful chaos of ancient scholars. As you stretch your limbs and blink away confusion, you notice the garden around you looks like a botanical Pinterest board gone a tad haywire. The fragrant aroma of fresh herbs tickles your nose, a pleasant mix of rosemary, thyme, and something resembling your grandparents' cologne. But wait, what is that oversized plant poking through the hedge? It appears to be a mix between a pumpkin and a particularly ambitious cabbage, refusing to follow the rules of
sensible gardening. It turns out our garden is more than just a delightful mishmash of greens. It's where aspiring alchemists gather to pursue spiritual purification while also desperately trying to find a way to avoid paying taxes. You overhear a couple of philosophers debating the merits of mixing dried roses with crushed board game pieces. "Isn't that how you make the secret potion of enlightenment?" one asks, while the other rolls their eyes so hard you half expect them to fall over. "No, you nincompoop, that's for the harvest moon of enlightenment, not whatever you thought would grow in your backyard." As they passionately argue, you begin to contemplate the view before you.
A diagram etched into damp soil shows a mystical fusion of a rose, a cross, and those funky alchemical symbols that looked like they were scribbled by a toddler. It practically screams, "Get your purification right here." It's like the ancient version of a motivational poster with a side of existential dread. The whispers of history brush against your ears, the kind of whispers that make you think, maybe I should have paid more attention in that one philosophy class, as you ponder what it means for the soul's inner perfection to mix with the questionable herbal concoctions being touted by a man in a robe that looks a little too much like a bathrobe. Will pure thoughts mixed with herbs yield enlightenment, or just another bad smell? He ponders aloud. Take a moment to imagine those ancient scholars hunched over clay tablets, diligently taking notes about which herbs might actually help them achieve nirvana, while also arguing about the necessity of wearing sandals to ensure true enlightenment. Was it a requirement or just a fashion choice? Clearly, the sandals symbolize a path to inner peace, one insists, while the other's bare feet scream, "No, that's just an excuse to avoid laundry." The alchemical processes unfold here like a slapstick comedy. Open flames, bubbling pots, and people dashing about in what looks like they've gone through a fabric store's reject pile. As an excited alchemist reaches for a jar labeled mystical powder, you realize this could either yield the next great discovery or create the world's worst piñata. Right there, in the midst of chaos, someone sneezes loudly, causing a miniature explosion of brightly colored dust. It's a real slapstick moment, one that would make anyone wish they had popped popcorn for the show, and you can't help but chuckle. The crowd barely flinches. They've clearly seen enough of this delightful absurdity to know it's just part of alchemical life. But amidst the frolicking and herb-induced ramblings, there lurks a hidden tension. Every alchemist secretly knows they are one miscalculation away from either genius or utter chaos. Remember, one wise sage warns gravely, in the world of alchemy, there's no path to spiritual perfection that doesn't involve a bit of trial and error, or, at the very least, a lot of splattered ingredients on your favorite robe. More laughter erupts, filling the garden, blending with the floating scents of rosemary and something suspiciously toga-like. And just as you find yourself lost in the joy of it all, the heady aroma of potential narratives wafts through the air. Here in the alchemical garden, something extraordinary is boiling just beneath the surface. Whether it's a new path to personal enlightenment or simply the beginnings of a very awkward family reunion, One thing is for sure. The quest for inner perfection might just be worth the laughs, and maybe even a sprinkle of chaos. And who
Wouldn't want to walk away with a story about the time they accidentally cultivated a plant that looked like it ghosted its way through a family tree?
How delightfully absurd. Hey guys, tonight we're not setting sail into pirate waters. No greasy sailors, no splintery ships, no sunburnt men arguing over treasure that probably never existed. Nope. Tonight, we're wandering somewhere much quieter, much darker, and far more curious. Tonight, we're stepping into the shadowy corners of history, where generals swore dangerous oaths, Romans performed rituals they definitely didn't want written down, and scholars spent centuries trying to turn lead into gold. But before we drift too far into the unknown, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy these strange little nighttime journeys. No pressure. Sleepy Oogway would never pressure you. And leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. Somehow, it's always 2 a.m. somewhere. And honestly, topics like forbidden rituals and ancient secrets feel exactly right at 2 a.m. Now, dim those lights. Turn on a fan for that soft white noise hum. Get comfortable. Sink into your pillow. Wrap yourself in a blanket. And maybe tuck your feet in. Not because imaginary rats are plotting anything tonight, but because history has a way of creeping up when your toes are cold. Let's pause for a moment. Have you ever wondered what history looks like after dark? Not the clean textbook version, but the quiet, whispered version. The oaths sworn in secret. The rituals practiced behind closed doors. The experiments carried out by candlelight, where failure meant madness, or worse. Tonight, we'll meet Hannibal, not just the legendary general who crossed the Alps with elephants, but the man bound by a dark oath so powerful it shaped his entire life. An oath whispered in childhood and carried like a shadow into war. We'll drift into ancient Rome, where religion, superstition, and power mixed in unsettling ways, where certain rituals were hidden from the public eye, practiced only by those who believed the gods demanded secrecy and sacrifice. And finally, we'll wander into the strange, smoky workshops of alchemy, where early thinkers weren't just trying to make gold, but searching for truth, immortality, and the secret patterns of the universe. Men who believed matter itself had a soul, and that with enough patience, wisdom, and sleepless nights, it might reveal its secrets. But don't worry, we're not racing through battles or shocking details. We're moving slowly, quietly, like turning the pages of an old book while everyone else in the world is asleep. This is history meant for half-closed eyes, for wandering thoughts, for the calm space between curiosity and dreams. So settle in. Let your breathing slow. Let the noise of the modern world fade away. Tonight, with Sleepy Oogway as your guide, we explore dark oaths, forbidden rituals, and the secret science that once promised to unlock the universe. One quiet story at a time. Now, let us begin. And so, as our journey through the darker, stranger corners of the past slowly comes to rest, it's worth taking a moment to sit with what we've seen tonight. History wasn't lived in clean museum halls or neatly written timelines. It was lived in cold rooms, smoky kitchens, crowded streets, and uneasy nights. People endured hunger, confusion, superstition, and routines that would feel almost unbelievable to us now. They ate questionable food, trusted rituals they barely understood, and woke each day unsure whether comfort or chaos would greet them first. And yet, they carried on. There's something oddly humbling about that. Even wrapped in hardship, humanity found room for curiosity, laughter, belief, and persistence. A shared meal, no matter how strange, still brought people together. A whispered oath still gave meaning. A clumsy experiment by candlelight still carried hope. The past reminds us that resilience isn't loud or heroic most of the time. It's quiet, stubborn, and deeply human. And as you rest here now, safe and warm, it's okay to feel grateful for the small comforts around you. Clean water, soft blankets, a peaceful night without rituals to appease unseen forces. You don't have to earn your rest the way they did. You're allowed to simply have it. So let the weight of the day drift away. Let history stay where it belongs, behind you, gently fading. Your breathing can slow. Your thoughts can loosen their grip. There's nothing left to figure out tonight. Thank you for wandering through the past with sleepy Uguay. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, you've made it to a quiet place now. Close your eyes, rest easy, and let sleep come softly, like a story finally finished.